Chapter 16:22. But when Meng Xiaoyao said so, it was the golden rule for them. They no longer hesitated and quickly responded. After thanking Alex, they simply said goodbye and went down the southwest hill. Although Yu Xiuning couldn't understand English, she could guess the situation. Seeing that Meng Xiaoyao was about to leave, she snorted lightly and flashed to stop Meng Xiaoyao. Meng Xiaoyao didn't need to ask to know what Yu Xiuning meant. He smiled and said, "Little Shui, are you still not getting over it? The life and death of these people here have nothing to do with me. But there is one thing I have to ask clearly. Otherwise, it will be contradictory for you to just sit back and do nothing." Yu Xiuning said. Meng Xiaoyao raised his eyebrows. "Why do you say this? Since you can abandon this, you can also let go of it. It doesn't matter. Then why do you have to set up for so long and wait for that stupid boy Yangcheng to put on so many plays for you? Why don't you just leave and let the world run its course?" Yu Xiuining's tone was a bit disdainful. Meng Xiaoyao smiled and said, "Since I crossed that door 50,000 years ago, all my thoughts are based on my understanding and are not limited by the karma of heaven and earth. I don't need to explain to anyone. I have my own judgment on how to deal with it." Yu Xiuning narrowed her eyes, and a hint of slight annoyance flashed on her beautiful face. She gritted her teeth. "I'm tired of your excuses. Little Shui, why are you so angry? Since you concealed the contents I wrote and my various deployments in front of Yangcheng in the Tontian Tower, you have already agreed with my approach. Is it worthwhile for people like you and me to fight for this drop in the ocean?" Yu Xiuning let out a burst of bell-like laughter, as if laughing at Meng Xiaoyao's overconfidence. "You only guessed half of it. I do agree with your deployments. Although it is not completely clear, I can understand what you expect. However, it's not because I trust you that I'm willing to do this. I only believe in my own vision. Sooner or later, that silly boy, Yangcheng, will make you understand that the comprehension you've gained over the past tens of thousands of years may not be correct." Meng Xiaoyao said calmly, "Oh, to hear you say that, my expectations for Yangcheng have also increased." Yu Xiuning rolled her eyes at him, and suddenly her figure flashed and disappeared from the slope. This scene frightened Alex so much that he directly knelt on the ground and worshipped loudly, thinking that a deity had descended to the mortal world. In the next moment, the sound of an explosion on the sea reached everyone's ears. The warships with steel and iron frames were like giant sea beasts in grief, making a series of roars. Yu Xiuning used a little trick and directly sank these European troops. After doing this, Yu Xiuining's figure returned to the mountain again and turned to Meng Xiaoyao. "You want to give up on them, but I won't let you." Meng Xiaoyao didn't care at all, as if he was looking at a little girl who was fooling around. He didn't take it too seriously and said, "My days here have come to an end. Let's go to my place now. There's a little guest there. I can't let her stay alone all the time. It's inevitable that I can't serve her well." This made Yu Xiuning a little puzzled, but she didn't ask much. She followed Meng Xiaoyao and his disciples and left the island. In an incomparably quiet small world, there were birds and flowers everywhere, and lush trees. The air was filled with the fragrance of nature, the temperature was comfortable, and the sun was bright. In the middle of a fragrant grassland, there were several ingenious wooden pavilions and attics, surrounded by waterside pavilions and flowers, and a few acres of small land were planted with some exotic flowers and plants. And it just so happened that in such an antique place, a white woman with beautiful amber hair was sitting on a stone platform outside the building. She was holding an object that looked like a bamboo slip in her hand, but if one looked closely, they would see that it was a jade slip. On these turquoise jade stones, there were all kinds of golden runes flashing. The runes recorded a lot of content, and through the infusion of true yuan, a massive amount of information could be retrieved from it. The white woman was very engrossed in this jade slip. On the stone table beside her, there were many other copies placed. It seemed that she had read them and didn't have the leisure to sort them out. The scene in the courtyard outside the pavilion changed, and 4 figures appeared after a flash like a water mirror. It was Meng Xiaoyao, Yu Xiuning, and the other 2. Yu Xiuning was quite interested in this side of the world and smiled. "Meng Xiaoyao, You really know how to enjoy yourself. Sure enough, after crossing that door, you can open up a stable space by yourself. I will also try this magical power of the ancient immortals in the future. If you want it, you can do it long ago. You don't have to be so sarcastic, Meng Xiaoyao said and smiled, walking towards the white woman. At this time, the white woman who had been buried in the jade slip also noticed the person coming. After frowning, she put down the jade slip and looked at Meng Xiaoyao with a complicated gaze. Senior. The woman's tone was more respectful. Meng Xiaoyao smiled and said, Jane, have you learned anything after reading these jade slips? This white beauty was Jane, who was brought over by Yang Yuansu before. Jane showed an indescribable wry smile, pursed her lips, hesitated for a long time, then shook her head and said, I thought that a master like Huaxia like Senior should focus on comprehending the heavenly way and look down on scientific theories, but I didn't expect that Senior's scientific research and knowledge reserve would amaze me. The jade slips that she read before were chosen from Meng Xiaoyao's study, and Meng Xiaoyao allowed her to read them. These jade slips were not secret manuals, but Meng Xiaoyao's achievements and ideas in various scientific research, all of which were beyond the technology of this era. Meng Xiaoyao said matter-of-factly, that's natural. If you live for tens of thousands of years like me, you will always start to learn all kinds of things out of boredom. Compared to me, your understanding of the power of science is much higher. I just rely on the precipitation of age to surpass you. But in terms of future creativity, I am not as good as you. Senior, you flatter me. Jane smiled and said. Meng Xiaoyao shook his head. I won't flatter you. If you didn't amaze me as much as I said, I wouldn't have specially asked you to visit me during this period of time. You are really a big, unexpected variable. After listening, although Jane knew that it was a compliment, she still smiled bitterly and helplessly. Yu Shiwening, who had been listening, was confused. She didn't know much about the concept of science, so she wondered, what are you talking about? How is this beautiful girl a variable? Meng Xiaoyao turned back and said sternly, Little Shui, this little girl is not simple. If Yang Chun could be said to be the key to changing the fate of a human race with his understanding and personality, then this little girl was a woman who could use her brain to change the fate of a human race. I had no choice but to separate her from Yang Chun. Otherwise, with her assistance, it may not be possible to stimulate the true limit of Yang Chun. Yu Shiwening was startled and looked at Jane up and down, seemingly not believing it. And Jane also looked at Yu Shiwening curiously. Beauties always pay special attention to each other. It can't be. Although this little girl looks pretty good, her cultivation is only close to the crossing calamity stage. Her comprehension and innate talent are excellent, but there is still a gap between her and little Yang's abnormal aptitude. You should know that if little Yang were to go all out, his strength could easily double. How could this little girl become the key? Jane heard and asked excitedly, What? Senior. You know Yang Chun? Is he back? Where is he now? Yu Shiwening thought about it, and remembered that Yang Chun seemed to be looking for a woman. She couldn't help but giggle. It turns out to be you. You are that silly kid's confidant who was threatened and taken away. Don't worry, he's fine. I'm afraid he won't be too happy if he can't find you. Jane breathed a sigh of relief. There was some anxiety in her eyes, but helplessness was written all over her face. Don't worry too much. Yangqing already knows that you are safe and sound. He has more important things to do now and needs to make a decision. When everything is settled, I will naturally let you out. Meng Xiaoyao comforted. Jane nodded, but her worries were obviously not reduced. After she gradually understood the truth of everything, she became more and more worried about the fate of Yang Chun, because this could not be solved by rational means. Yu Shiwening's face was also a little expectant. She didn't intend to go out either. She just stayed in this place and waited for the result. Chapter 16:23. The Forgotten Kingdom, on a yacht in the southern part of the sea. Although the temperature at noon was only 5 or 6 degrees, it was not too cold because of the small wind. The sun was not too dazzling, but Yang Chun was still wearing a pair of sunglasses, a white short-sleeved shirt, and a pair of loose, colorful beach pants. He was leaning on a beach chair, One hand was holding a sea fishing rod, and the other hand was holding a cigarette, smoking from time to time. Beside Yang Chun, there was a small beach chair. The chubby little girl was wearing a short-sleeved shirt and shorts, just like her father, exposing her fair, fleshy arms and legs. She was also holding a fishing rod, but her face was a little angry, and she was pouting her little mouth. It was no wonder that Lon Lon was not very happy, because Yang Chung had fish for the whole morning, but she did not catch a single one. The chubby little girl was very unhappy. Behind the father and daughter, there was a long table that had been moved out. There were some fishes that had been caught and various kinds of food ingredients placed on it. Mo Chinni, Tang Wan, Lu Mingyu, and several other women who were proficient in cooking were making some sashimi, sushi, fish steak, and other dishes. When the fragrance of the lemon fish steak wafted out, Lanlin's somewhat unhappy face disappeared. She immediately turned her head, stared at the pan in front of Mo Chinni, and licked her pink tongue. Yang Chung threw away the cigarette, but in his hand, reached out and pinched his daughter's face to make her turn her head. What are you looking at? Concentrate on fishing. If you don't catch one, you're not allowed to eat today. Yang Chung smirked. The chubby little girl wanted to cry at this cruel father. Dad, Lon Lon can jump into the sea to catch fish? Fishing is not fun. Yang Chung smiled and said, You are so impatient. You come up every 3 to 5 minutes. Of course you can't catch any. If I let you jump down to catch fish, why did you fish for so long? Lon Lon thought that the little fish are stupid. Who knows they're so bad? They refused to eat Lanlin's hook. The chubby little girl argued seriously. Don't find excuses, sit still, and continue fishing. Yang Chen insisted and refused to budge. On the surface, he acted like a strict father, but in his heart, he was secretly happy. Having a naive daughter was truly one of life's greatest joys. Life wasn't boring at all. The women behind couldn't help but smile, knowing that Yang Chung was teasing Lon Lon, and Lon Lon was trying to play tricks. Mo Chinni put 2 fried fish on the plate, brought it to the chubby little girl, and smiled. Okay, don't worry about your father. He's just scaring you. Eat first. The chubby little girl felt as if she had been pardoned. She couldn't hold it anymore. She didn't even use the knife and fork. She directly reached out to grab the fish steak and started eating. Her little face was pink and full of happiness and satisfaction. Once she started eating, she didn't care about anything else. She threw down the fishing rod and ran directly to the dining table at the back and asked Tang Wan for sushi. Yang Chung curled his lips and was about to get up to grab the food from his daughter when he saw Lin Ruoshi coming out of the cabin. She was on the phone and seemed to have something to talk to him about. Lin Ruoshi answered a few times to the phone. After hanging up, she walked to Yang Chung and said, Hubby, Mom called and said that they can no longer stay in Beijing. They plan to move to Hainan. Yang Chung was stunned, and then shook his head helplessly. This old man is really stubborn. The whole of Huaxia is almost frozen, but he still refuses to leave Huaxia. Yes, Lin Ruoshi answered in a low voice, and then said, There is one more thing. Mom asked me to tell you that Chief Number 1 still wants you to meet him. When Yang Chung heard this, he smiled and waved his hand. No, I know what he wants to say, even if I don't meet him. He wants me to confront the gods. I'm not a psychopath, nor am I a hero. When someone was protecting him, he pretended to be mysterious in front of me. Now that he has been abandoned by them, he wants me to die. I'm not a fool. TSK, you're so stingy. Lin Ruoshi smiled and rolled her eyes at him, but she also agreed with Yang Cheng's approach. She didn't want Yang Chung to get involved in this human catastrophe. It had been more than a month since the day Yang Yuansu left. Deaths, famine, low temperatures, and man-made crimes had begun to appear everywhere in the world. Not only poor areas and countries, but even developed countries were in chaos. Almost every week, humans were dying in the millions. Obviously, the number of deaths would gradually increase. In the end, if the temperature continued to drop, except for those at the top, the chances of ordinary people surviving would be almost zero. For more than a month, Yang Chung had been staying on the island with his wife and daughter, living a leisurely life, not caring about the turmoil in the world at all. No matter how big the problem was, if the tallest person didn't go and handle it, why should he go and die? Not only did he kidnap his woman, but he also wanted him to face some kind of fate. Only a ghost would believe that. Yang Cheng didn't think that he was such a great person who served the people, so he decisively shrank back and didn't move. During this time, Yang Cheng also figured out a lot of things. At number one's place, the one who used coercion to suppress him should be Yang Yuansu or a guy with similar strength. Number one should have been supported by Yang Yuansu and the others, but after the recovery of Gaia's heart, they had already left number one, so number one immediately lost the courage to challenge him. Yang Cheng had always abhorred evil. At that time, he suppressed him to the point that he couldn't lift his head. Now that he had no support, he wanted to talk about national righteousness with him and go and die generously. Nonsense. Moreover, during this period, Yu Lanting and Meng Zik of the Desolate Realm came to find him. Yu Lanting asked the old ancestor if Yu Shiwening had come to the island, because after Yu Shiwening went to see the descendants of the Qingxiu clan, she quickly disappeared, and no one knew where the old ancestor went. Now at this critical moment, the old ancestor disappeared. Yu Lanting and the other monsters were naturally anxious. Meng Zik begged Yang Cheng to help the demonic cultivator release the seniors in the demon realm, but Yang Cheng directly made up some reasons to refuse, because his strength had suppressed Meng Zik more than once, and Meng Zik couldn't force it. However, Yu Shiwening's disappearance made Yang Cheng feel that it might be related to Yang Yuansu's master. Of course, it was only a vague guess. Anyway, no matter what happened to the gods and humans in the end, it was not a problem for him to protect his family. How to live his life should be left to those who were stronger than him to think about saving humans. After chatting with Lin Ruoshi for a while, Yang Cheng and the women sat around the table and enjoyed the fresh sashimi feast. Xiao Qiqing, Jin Xiao, and other women also came one after another. Xiao Qiqing broke the barrier of the 9 yin meridians through the cultivation of 9 revolutions yin yang, and her strength improved by leaps and bounds. In just over a month, she was about to reach the soul formation stage. Everyone cultivated and played, and the atmosphere on the island seemed tranquil and warm, which made Yang Cheng even less foolish to risk his life for the so-called righteousness. When they were almost done eating, Yang Cheng picked up Lan Lan, who was still unsatisfied, and planned to find an empty place to check the little fellow's cultivation. Not just cultivation, but some combat skills and the use of spells. Yang Cheng himself was an unorthodox person, and he often regretted not practicing some basic things when he was young, so he often wasted a lot of effort. Now, naturally, he did not want his daughter to have any regrets. However, just as he was about to leave the yacht, Yang Cheng noticed that there were dozens of cultivators at the crossing tribulation stage, and even a few familiar and powerful true elemental pressure coming from the east. Soon, a group of cultivators from Huaxia appeared on the island. Yang Cheng and the women were a little surprised. The people who came are the experts of the Luo family and the Xiao family led by Luo Qinxiu, as well as Yin Xiuming, Lu Xuan, and other experts from Hongmeng. Most of them were at the weak water stage, but there were also many with lower cultivation, such as Yang Cheng's acquaintances, Luo Xiao, Yin Sanyang, and others. However, these people obviously did not come to find trouble. First of all, they should understand that even if they joined forces, they would not be a match for Yang Cheng. Secondly, because their bodies were full of traces of battle, torn clothes, messy hair, and a lot of blood that had not yet dried, there were also many weak water stage experts who were still injured. "What's the matter with you all?" Yang Cheng floated down to the beach, his heart sank, and he asked the group of people in a confrontational manner. Luo Qinxiu's eyes were red, and there was a trace of despair in his cold expression. His voice was slightly hoarse. "It's over. It's all over." Chapter 16:24. What? Yang Cheng was confused. With a stern expression, he said, "Speak clearly. What happened to you guys?" Luo Xiao, who couldn't hold it in any longer, ran over in tears and threw herself into Yang Cheng's arms. "Yang Cheng, the illusion realm was attacked by the gods. My grandfather was killed by the gods while trying to buy time. We have nothing left. Yang Chen's face suddenly changed, and he couldn't react for a while. The gods broke the illusion? Luo Xiaoxiao's grandfather was Luo Pingqiao. He was stronger than Luo Qinxiu, but he was killed. It seemed like the gods had crushed the cultivators in the illusion realm. As expected, the strength of the gods was already unstoppable. The impact made Yang Cheng forget that Luo Xiaoxiao's intimate actions were in front of the women. The women frowned. Where did this woman come from? When Yang Cheng came back to his senses, he quickly pulled Luo Xiaoxiao away. However, he couldn't say anything harsh to this pitiful girl. He could only say, "Stop crying." Then, Yang Cheng walked over to Yin Sanyang. The three siblings, Yin Feiyun and Yin Feiyu, were there too. However, the three siblings of the Yin clan looked as if they had lost their souls. Even Yin Sanyang looked sad when she saw Yang Cheng. She simply nodded at him. "Child Yang Cheng asked with concern, "Granny Yin, what happened? Which gods attacked the illusion realm?" Yin Sanyang sighed. She wanted to say something, but she choked on her words. Her tears fell like pearls from a broken necklace. "Yang Cheng, don't make things difficult for Yin Failing." Lu Xiwan, one of the four elders, said, "Elder Yin Wuchen died in battle. The three siblings are having a hard time now." Yang Cheng was stunned. Yin Wuchen died too? But it was no wonder. He was so stubborn and couldn't even defeat Luo Pingqiao. It was understandable that Yin Wuchen died. It was a pity that Yin Sanyang seemed to be very sad. No matter how much of a gap there was between them, the death of her own father was still a source of grief. At this time, Luo Qinxiu took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "It's Master Yin Yun, the third son of the Ning family who disappeared before, Ning Ruozhu, and another person dressed like a Westerner. He should also be one of the main gods." "Three main gods? Wizard Yin Yin?" Yang Cheng said in disbelief. "That fellow who is one of the four great elders of Hongmeng?" Based on Yang Cheng's understanding of Hongmeng, he only knew that Venerable Yin Yin rarely participated in Hongmeng's operations. His strength was profound, and he led the Buddhist cultivators of Hongmeng, but he was compassionate. This was the evaluation of him by the people in the illusion realm. He was actually a main god, and that third son of the Ning family, one of the top 10 experts in the illusion realm, Ning Ruozhu, was also a main god. I never would have thought that Yin Yun, that monk, was actually a master god. From his methods, it's very likely that he's the legendary fire god. As for that Ning Ruozhu and that extremely fast bastard, I don't know where they came from," Yin Xiuming said while gnashing her teeth. Yang Cheng could roughly guess that the extremely fast guy should be Hermes, who was wearing the flying shoes. As for that Ning Ruozhu, the chances of her being Athena was extremely high. It was very likely that she was Hera, whom he had yet to meet. Yang Cheng frowned. What were these people thinking? Were they really forcing people into a dead end? The whole world was already under their control. Was it necessary to beat up the cultivators of Hua Xia so badly? However, Yang Cheng wouldn't say it out loud. Luo Qinxiu and the others in front of him weren't his friends. On the contrary, it was already good enough that he didn't go and kill them. "I've already heard about what happened to you guys, but I still don't know. What's your purpose for coming here?" Yang Cheng said with a calm and unruffled smile. Most of the people in the illusion realm didn't look too good. It was as if a layer of window paper in their hearts had been poked through, and Yang Cheng saw their most unwilling and helpless, pitiful self-esteem. "Back then, we don't know who it was that wanted to kill us by hook or by crook. Now that their nest has been destroyed, it's also the cycle of nature. What? You still want to come here to seek our protection? Don't you guys think that you're too shameless?" Choi Yun had always been a person who didn't care about what she said. She sneered coldly at the side. Her older sister, Kai Ning, felt that at a time like this, personal grudges should be put aside. After all, this was an important matter that concerned the entire human race. She pulled Choi Yun to stop her from interrupting. It wouldn't be good if she affected Yang Cheng's judgment. Choi Yun was unwilling. She broke free from her older sister's hand and said unhappily, "Big sister, why are you pulling me? Am I wrong? Look at them, acting as if nothing had happened and that it was only natural for them to come here to seek refuge. Even I feel disgusted." "Yonyan, Kai Ning reprimanded her in a low voice. She looked apologetically at the people in the illusion realm. She felt that although most of these people had a grudge against Yang Cheng, she couldn't just kill them all. When they heard this, Lu Shuan, Yin Xiaoming, and the others all had dark expressions on their faces. They were angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. For hundreds of years, they had held high positions and could be said to look down on the entire world. But who would have thought that after the rise of the gods and geniuses, they would end up in such a state? They had to abandon Mystic Heaven Island dejectedly and seek protection from a 20-year-old brat, who could even be considered to be someone they had a grudge against. Yin Sanyang sighed and walked in front of Yang Cheng. She smiled bitterly and said, "Child Yang, Miss Kai is right. Although my father was involved in what happened in the past, the Yin clan has indeed let you down. None of us here have the face to ask for your help." Yang Cheng didn't like to see Luo Qinxiu and the others, but he had no intention of targeting Yin Sanyang. He hurriedly smiled and said, "Granny Yin, there's no need to be so courteous. Even if I don't welcome the entire world here, I won't reject you. You've been a great help to me today. I, Yang Cheng, understand the principle of repaying a drop of water with a gushing spring. After all, I don't have many benefactors." Yin Sanyang's eyes flickered with tears of gratitude. She smiled and nodded. "Thank you, child Yang, for thinking so highly of me. I'm already satisfied with your words. But child Yang, any of the other seniors here today is more important than me. Yin Sanyang, the illusory realm has already collapsed. Almost all of the human cultivators have gathered here. If any of them were to perish, I'm afraid that Huaxia will never be able to recover." So, before Yin Sanyang could finish, Yang Cheng raised his hand to stop her. "Granny Yin, although I respect you, there are some things that I cannot go against my principles. I, Yang Cheng, have always repaid kindness with kindness and vengeance with vengeance. I've never done something so foolish as to repay evil with kindness. Most of these people here have nothing to do with me. Even if they do, they're my enemies. I don't intend to kill them in front of my daughter, nor do I wish for their dirty blood to stain my home. However, I don't welcome them to stay on the island either. Besides, what if the other gods come here and think that I'm on their side? Wouldn't that bring me unnecessary trouble? Although I'm strong, I'm afraid that I'm no match for the current Athena. That's why I can't let my family be in danger." Yin Sanyang wanted to persuade him, but Yin Feiyu had already stepped forward. She glared at him and said, "Forget it. Sister, this kid is obviously afraid of trouble. He wants to hide on the island like a coward. No matter how you explain it to him, he'll just feign ignorance. Moreover, he might be on the same side as the gods. Even if we're not as strong as him, we should at least die with dignity." "That's right. Elder Yin, you should be glad to have such a son and daughter in the afterlife." Lu Xiuan said solemnly, "We're here because we have no other choice, but it's not because we're afraid of death. Now that the lives of the cultivators and people of Huaxia are hanging by a thread, we'll just head to the North Pole and fight the gods to the death. At least we'll have a clear conscience." With that, the experts in the illusory realm unleashed their arrogance. All of them agreed loudly, their eyes burning with the desire to fight to the death. However, Luo Qinxiu, Yin Xiaoming, and a few others who were calmer remained silent. They knew that going to the North Pole was no different from courting death. Yang Cheng ignored Yin Feiyu's provocation. Among these people, he only cared about Yin Sanyang and Luo Xiaoxiao. As for the others, they could go and die if they wanted. At this moment, a cultivator who was standing on a giant blue sword appeared in the sky above the East Sea. He led a large group of cultivators with varying cultivation bases. It was Su Shaogong, who was nowhere to be seen. Chapter 16:25. Early Tai Ching. Yang Chun could tell at a glance that Su Shaogong had advanced to the Tai Ching realm. Although he didn't know when it happened, it hadn't been a long time since the last time he saw him. This guy was indeed a genius. A sword cultivator's combat strength far surpassed that of other cultivators. Therefore, even Su Shaogong, who was at the early Tai Ching stage, would not be much weaker than Luo Qinxiu. "Su Shaogong, where did you go before?" Did you only cause trouble for your family? One of the Shao clan's supreme elders asked angrily. As a vassal family of the Shao clan, Su Shaogong had disappeared at the most critical moment of the Shao clan. This had caused the Shao clan to be extremely dissatisfied. Su Shaogong's cold gaze swept across, like an ice-cold sword piercing into the elder's eyes, causing the elder's entire body to tremble. I didn't have a time to ask you. I just found a secluded place and went through the 9 heavens divine lightning tribulation. Why did more than half of our Su family's 100+ people die when we returned to the illusion realm? The elder said with a lack of confidence. What are you saying? Only your Su family suffered. The entire illusion realm was massacred by those 3 main gods. The 3 great clans suffered heavy casualties, and Hongming lost more than 80% of its cultivators. Do you think we don't feel heartache? Su Shaogong sneered and said, It is indeed tragic. You bunch of old fellows only care about running for your lives. You didn't even look behind me. There are still so many cultivators with low cultivation who were left behind in the illusion realm. Fortunately, I gathered them together along the way, and someone told me that you might have escaped here. Otherwise, I would have thought that all of you were dead. As he said that, Su Shaogong ignored the group of angry Shao clan and illusion realm elders and stared at Yangcheng. In the end, Su Shaogong seemed to feel that it was absurd and laughed. Are you trying to anger me to death? I originally thought that after I finished my seclusion, I would be able to have a good fight with you. But now your strength. It seems that I can't even touch your heels. Yangcheng did not dislike this arrogant sword cultivator. He smiled faintly and said, You also want to take refuge here? Su Shaogong put away his flying sword and raised his head. I don't have any enmity with you, but I don't want to take refuge here. I just happen to have nowhere else to go. If you don't want me to stay, I will naturally leave. Yangcheng pondered for a moment, wondering if he should let some of the cultivators stay. After all, some of them had no enmity with him. But at that moment, Kai Ning suddenly exclaimed from behind, Master, why are you here? Kai Ning's gaze landed on a beautiful woman dressed in a red dress. She had almond-shaped eyes and rosy cheeks and a slim figure. It was none other than Tang Lui. It was only then that Yangcheng realized that Tang Lui had already reached the early divine transformation stage. She must have stumbled into the illusionary realm, which was why Su Shaogong had bumped into her. Tang Lui, on the other hand, did not seem to hear Kai Ning's call. The woman's gaze was locked on Luo Qianxiu, who was standing in front of the crowd. It was as if she had seen something that made her panic and agitated. Her breathing quickened, and her eyes blurred with tears. At that moment, Luo Qianxiu's eyes swept across the crowd. But the moment he saw Tang Lui, Luo Qianxiu's calm face revealed a trace of astonishment. Wang Sheng, it's really you? Tang Lui's voice was choked with sobs, as if she could not believe her own eyes. Yangcheng and Kai Ning were taken aback. Yangcheng had already guessed it, but Kai Ning was shocked beyond words. Luo Qianxiu's hands were tightly clenched into fists. Beside him, Luo Xiaoxiao looked at her father and this strange woman with a puzzled expression. The atmosphere at the scene became a little strange. Everyone could tell that Luo Qianxiu and this beautiful early divine transformation stage woman had some kind of unforeseen relationship. Tang Lui finally took a step forward, sprinting towards Luo Qianxiu. She stared fixedly at Luo Qianxiu's face and muttered to herself, There's no mistaking it. It's you. Your looks may have changed, but your eyes, your aura, I'll never forget it. Wang Sheng. You answer me. You heartless liar. Say something. Tang Lui grabbed Luo Qianxiu's collar and shook him violently. She screamed and screamed as tears streamed down her cheeks in a heart-wrenching manner. Some of the elders of the Luo family could still remember that when Luo Qianxiu went to the secular world to train, he used the name Wang Sheng. Could this woman be? Many of them had already guessed what was going on. They looked at Luo Xiaoxiao, then at Tang Lui, trying to make a comparison. Woman, what are you doing? Don't you dare pull my father. Luo Xiaoxiao snapped out of her daze and try to pull Tang Lui away. Tang Lui, however, was startled by Luo Xiaoxiao's words. She quickly grasped Luo Xiaoxiao's shoulders and looked at the girl from head to toe in delight. "You, child, you called him. You're his daughter? What's your name? How old are you?" Tang Lui fired off a barrage of questions. Luo Xiaoxiao thought that her auntie had lost her mind. She looked at her father in confusion, only to find that her father's eyes had reddened. "Father, what's going on?" Luo Xiaoxiao finally realized that something was amiss. Yang Cheng, who had been silent all this while, finally stepped forward and said, "Luo Qianxiu, at this point, you still don't want to acknowledge her? After all, she's Miss Luo's mother." Everyone turned to look at Yang Cheng in surprise. How did Yang Cheng know about this? Yang Cheng did not know why he felt the urge to say it out loud. It was as if he was reminded of what Luo Xiaoxiao had told him about her birth. He felt that it was best to let the girl know that her mother was still alive. "Luo Qianxiu, are you still trying to hide it? You took the pear blossom jade pendant from Miss Luo and gave her a jade pendant with the carving of a deer. You even called her Luo or Luo. If I'm not mistaken, that's how you addressed Miss Luo's mother, right? Doesn't this mean that you've never forgotten Master Tang? I used to have some doubts about how you knew that Master Tang had a daughter and even knew her name. Moreover, you even had that child's token, the pear blossom jade pendant. It was only until Miss Luo told me about her past that everything made sense." Tang Lui was overjoyed at his words. She believed that Yang Cheng would not lie about the fact that the girl in front of her was really her daughter. Luo Qianxiu was momentarily at a loss. So many days and nights flashed through his mind, the joys and sorrows of the past, the ups and downs of his family and power, and now he was exiled from the outside world in such dire straits. Looking at the reunion of mother and daughter before him, he felt that many things were laughable. He felt a sense of relief. Luo Qianxiu laughed bitterly at himself. He stretched out a hand and placed it on Tang Lui's back. "Luo, I've let you down." Tang Lui hugged Luo Xiaoxiao tightly. No one knew if she heard him or not, but she could not stop crying. Luo Xiaoxiao stood there in a daze, her mouth mumbling some vague words. It was as if she could not bear the sudden change in her life, and could not accept the fact that her birth mother had suddenly appeared. The group of people in the illusory realm sighed. Who would have thought that Luo Qianxiu would have such a warm side to him? The women were especially sensitive, especially those like Kai Ning who knew her master's hardships. She could not bear to look at him any longer, and she quietly wiped away her tears. Perhaps it was the tenderness of the scene that had softened Yang Cheng's heart. He did not make things difficult for the cultivators, allowing them to stay as long as they did not interfere with his and his family's lives. From some of the Hongmeng elders and Su Xiaogong, Luo Qianxiu learned that although a large number of cultivators had perished in the illusory realm, there were still quite a few who managed to escape. However, they were scattered all over the place, and no one knew where they went after they left the illusory realm. But it was obvious that they could not return to the illusory realm, especially Hongmeng's Xiantian Island. The fire god's meticulous plan, reincarnating to become an eminent monk of Huaxia, and then ascending to become one of the 4 great elders of Xiantian Island, Master Yin Yun, was definitely not just for this one counterattack. Most likely, he was looking for a way to deal with the 12 heavens, celestial demon formation, and free Zeus. Yang Cheng and the others finally understood why Master Yin Yin had always been merciful and rarely made move. It was most likely because he did not want to reveal his true strength. If he did not make a move easily, it would not be easy for others to find out that he had a divine spark. Similarly, although Ning Ruoju's cultivation was profound, she rarely made a move. Most likely, it was because she did not want to give herself away. After all, it was necessary to be prepared in case all her previous efforts went to waste. Chapter 16:26. As for Yang Cheng himself, he had more to think about. Aphrodite and Apollo had made it clear that Hephaestus, the god of fire, was not the most powerful god, but he was the creator of many divine weapons. His divine weapon, the hammer of the god of fire, was said to be able to cause earthquakes and lava eruptions. More importantly, It could fuse divine power with a divine weapon. Moreover, he was a divine craftsman. Previously, he had been wondering how the fake magical girdle came about. Now, he could finally solve the mystery. It was most likely the work of Hephaestus. Due to the limitations of materials and strength, he could not forge a real divine weapon. But creating a fake one was not a problem for him. Coincidentally, this time, Hermes and the god of fire attacked the illusion together. Their relationship should be good, which explained why Hermes disguised himself as Grey Robe and participated in that strange operation. As for Ning Ruaju, who was most likely Hera, Yang Cheng felt that she must have played a lot of tricks. But for the time being, he was not sure if she was the mastermind. At this point, Yang Cheng had gradually understood the things that Kristen and the others had repeatedly hidden from him. After the recovery of Gaia's heart, they must have known about the various plans of the god race, but they did not want him to know. It would be a lie to say that Yang Cheng didn't care at all. After all, this wasn't a small matter, and it put him in a difficult position as a half-human, half-god. But even if he knew about it now, would he really stop them? With the arrival of a group of people in the illusion, the information reached his ears. Inevitably, Yang Cheng felt a little confused. Some things seemed to be mixed up in his heart, making him panic. For days passed quickly. Almost all the cultivators who stayed on the island had recovered. These people were not poor, and they still had a lot of healing elixirs. Yang Cheng did not care about them. Anyway, these people would not freeze to death or starve to death. It was impossible for all of them to stay in the house. Of course, people like Yin Sanyang and Tang Lui, who were related to Yang Cheng, still had to be treated well. It would be embarrassing to separate them from other related people. Hence, Yang Cheng arranged some accommodations for the Yin siblings, Luo Qinxiu, Luo Xiaoxiao, and the rest. Yang Cheng avoided interacting with Luo Xiaoxiao as much as possible, so that Lin Ruoxi would not be able to wait. But it seemed that Luo Xiaoxiao was not in the mood to pester Yang Cheng. Because of the appearance of her biological mother, Tang Lui, the girl was a little lost these few days. Luo Qinxiu and Su Xiaogong were the only two people left in the illusory realm. After everyone had recovered their strength, the two of them gathered a group of experts to discuss how to return to the illusory realm. These experts were different from Cheng. They knew that it was impossible for them to be friends with the god, and the gods would not let them go. The reason why they did not come looking for trouble was probably because the gods were busy recovering their strength and releasing Zeus from the formation. The cultivators knew that although the gods were much stronger than them, they would not be able to win if Zeus were to be released. Therefore, to be on the safe side, they decided to send Su Xiaogong, who was the fastest, to investigate the vicinity of Mystic Heaven Island and see if the gods were up to something. Although the 12 heavenly godly formation was the masterpiece of the ancient immortals and should be indestructible, the gods' strength had far surpassed the level they were 20,000 years ago when they first came to Earth. Moreover, the fire god and the empress had been in hiding for hundreds of years and understood the civilization of the cultivators of Huaxia. Unknowingly, 3 days had passed. Su Xiaogong, who had returned from the illusory realm, had also returned with the latest news. As expected, Mystic Heaven Island had been taken over by the gods. They had used their powerful spatial laws to create a sealed domain. Su Xiaogong did not dare to approach. No matter how arrogant he was, he did not want to die. Unable to find out what was going on inside, he could only observe from the outside that the godly formation was strangely destabilizing. It was as if the center of a spider's web was shaking, causing the entire web to tremble. After a tense discussion, the cultivators finally decided that they could not ignore the situation. They decided that all cultivators above the dark water stage would return to the illusion the next day. At midnight, Yang Cheng was chatting with a few women when he found out that Luo Qinxiu had come looking for him. Luo Qinxiu did not enter the castle. Instead, he stood on the cliff outside, staring at the wolf Feng moon in the sky, waiting for Yang Cheng to come out. Luo Qinxiu and Tang Lui had been reunited for the past few days. Yang Cheng did not know how they were doing, but with his daughter Luo Xiaoxiao by his side, it would not be too awkward. After all, they had been through a lot, and they would not cry and scream like the villains of the secular world. Yang Chung leisurely walked to the cliff and stood side by side with Luo Chinchio. From the side, Luo Chinchio's hair had turned white, as if he had aged a lot in just a few days. "What do you want?" Yang Cheng's tone was calm. He no longer had much hatred for this guy. Luo Chinchio was silent for a long time. Suddenly, he turned around and faced Yang Chung, humbly bowing his head. Yang Chung was startled. What was he doing? Bowing? I know I, Luo Chinchio, do not have the face to say this, but I can only beg of you, promise me one thing. Yang Chung couldn't help but chuckle. You want me to help you fight the gods? Didn't I say it before? No. Luo Chinchio stood up, shaking his head. I do not ask for you to fight against such a powerful enemy for the sake of us who were once your enemies. I'm afraid the power of the gods has already far exceeded our imagination. Then what do you want from me? Yang Chung was puzzled. Luo and Xiao Xiao, mother and daughter. Luo Chinchio's face trembled slightly as he suppressed the agitation in his heart. He gritted his teeth and said, If anything happens to me, please take good care of them. Yang Chung was stunned. Why did these words sound like a dying request? Was this man in front of him really that vicious, cunning, and unruly Luo family patriarch? It looks like you've already made preparations to not return from the illusory realm tomorrow, Yang Chung said with a smile. Luo Chinchio took a deep breath and sighed bitterly at himself. Actually, you know better than me, don't you? You have a divine spark, so you should know how strong the gods have recovered. We're going to profound Heaven Island this time to stop the gods from releasing Zeus. But to put it bluntly, we are just doing our best. There is no need to listen to the heavens' will. Then why are you still going? At least someone like you can hide for a while. You just reunited with your old lover, Yang Chung said half-jokingly. Luo Chinchio's expression was solemn as he said word by word, No, Luo, she is my wife. You were right. I have never forgotten her. Yang Chung was silent. The current Luo Chinchio was incomparably unfamiliar. I know that Xiao Xiao has feelings for you, but you don't really have feelings for her. However, I believe that since you were able to stay by her side in the eye of the heavenly demon, she definitely has a place in your heart. As a father, I don't want my daughter to be with someone like you. When I asked her to return to the illusory realm early, it was because I was afraid that she would get too close to you. She is a pitiful child and deserves a good man who treats her wholeheartedly. But I have no other choice, so I can only trust you. Luo Chinchio actually bowed deeply and nodded after he finished speaking. Yang Chung wanted to say something, but when the words were at the tip of his tongue, he couldn't open his mouth. As a man with many emotional debts, he could refuse, but as a father, it was difficult for him to refuse such a trust. Just as Luo Chinchio turned to leave, Yang Chung called out to him, Why? Yang Chung looked at Luo Chinchio with bright eyes. Why would you leave your wife and daughter to die even though you know that you will die? You know you could choose not to go. Even if the gods want to slaughter the cultivators, you could try to hide, or, for Master Tang's sake, stay here and receive my protection. Luo Chinchio turned around, chuckling lowly. If I said that it was because of a common saying, the rise and fall of the world, every man has a responsibility, would you believe me? Yang Chung frowned. But you are not a common man who charges into the enemy lines. All the cultivators on this island above the weak water stage are not. Luo Chinchio turned around. His eyes seemed to be flowing with a blazing flame as he smiled. You are wrong. All the people in the world are common men. Cultivation and realm cannot change our roots. Maybe it's because you are still young. Maybe it's because you almost always stay in a country outside of Huaxia. Maybe it's because you have a sovereign god's godhood. Maybe you don't understand, but us cultivators in Huaxia, although we fight and scheme against each other by hook or by crook, killing each other, fighting for power and strength, but now we have a common enemy. We cultivators in the illusion, the enemies of Huaxia's descendants. Just like a big family, usually we don't see eye to eye with each other. But when outsiders come to invade, no matter how many conflicts there are, they will be put aside and unite against the common enemy. Because in our bones, the same blood flows, our roots are still in the depths of Huaxia. If the gods want to raise our home to the ground and uproot us, then we must use our blood to irrigate the land that gave birth to us. Luo Chinchio said these words, not very passionate, not very serious, and a little too dull, but it made Yang Cheng's mind tremble. The man in front of him seemed to have shed all the halos, unloaded his cultivation and the past. He was like an ordinary man in the war years, a man who was about to go to the battlefield for the sake of family, for the sake of love, for the sake of loyalty. It was not that he was not afraid of death, but he could not fear the inevitable fate. Perhaps this was the original appearance of human beings. Yang Cheng couldn't help but think. Until Luo Chinchio left the cliff, Yang Cheng stood there quietly alone. Looking at the stars in the sky, Yang Cheng felt the cold wind all night, and no one disturbed him. The next morning, all the cultivators above the dark water stage in the illusion were ready to leave and return to Hongming's Xintian Island. Scenes of life and death parting were naturally unavoidable. Yin Sanyang and Yin Feiyu sent their brother Yin Feiyun off with tears in their eyes, while Tang Lui and Luo Xiaoxiao wept silently at Luo Chinchio. Luo Xiaoxiao originally wanted to rush up and drag Yang Cheng, begging Yang Cheng to help, but Luo Chinchio sent a stream of true essence in her acupuncture point, knocking her out. Yang Cheng didn't say a word, quietly watching everything until nearly 100 cultivators left. At this time, the eastern sky was dark and gloomy, and the cold wind howled. Chapter 16:27. The Forgotten Kingdom had once again regained its peace. It could even be said that it seemed a little deathly still. Hundreds of cultivators with low cultivation levels gathered one after another. They were all worried and sad, which covered the entire place with a layer of dark clouds. Standing on the beach, Yang Cheng silently lowered his head. His eyes were unfocused, as if he was thinking about something. The cold seawater slapped against the corners of Yang Cheng's shoes and pants. A large area had already been soaked, but Yang Cheng didn't seem to notice. At some point, Qiang Wei quietly walked to Yang Cheng's side and gently pulled on Yang Cheng's hand. "What are you thinking about? You're so engrossed." Qiang Wei asked with a sweet smile. Yang Cheng slowly raised his head, and his voice was a little ethereal. "Darling Qiang Wei, tell me, am I doing the right thing?" Qiang Wei's gaze froze. She had known Yang Cheng for a longer time than any other woman. How could she not know what Yang Cheng was referring to? She seemed to hesitate for a moment before saying, "If you're serious about making a decision, you never ask for our opinions. Why are you asking me this time?" Yang Cheng smiled bitterly. "That's right. Indecisiveness is not my style, but this decision is not only related to me, but also to you, everyone, so I really feel very confused." Qiang Wei smiled calmly. "How about this, hubby? I ask you a few questions. Speak. Are you afraid of the gods? Including Athena?" "No." Yang Cheng shook his head. "There's no harm in telling you the truth. If I didn't have a few trump cards, how could I have gotten to where I am today? Although I might not be able to beat them, it would be very difficult for me to lose." "Then if you don't go, will you regret it for the rest of your life?" Qiang Wei asked again. "Regret?" Yang Cheng said blankly. "I don't know." "Then if, in case you regret it, can you accept it?" Yang Cheng frowned and said, "Of course I don't want to have regrets. But who can live a life without regrets? Well, I hope even more is that all of you can be safe." "Hubby, do you really think that as long as you don't actively participate in the war between the humans and the gods, you can stay out of it?" Yang Cheng was stunned. "What do you mean?" Qiang Wei sighed and said, "That's right. You can frown at thousands of people, you can ignore the hatred in everyone's eyes, but people are different. Everyone here, except you, even Lon Lon, your own flesh and blood, is a human through and through. This time, it is a contest between the Protoss and the humans, and you are the key to the final outcome of the humans. Regardless of whether the Protoss or the humans won in the end, if you didn't participate, it would mean that you would be viewed as an enemy by at least one of the parties. If the Protoss were to lose, as one of the main gods, it would be wrong of you not to stand on the side of the humans. If the humans were to lose, whether they were enslaved or slaughtered, they would all see you as a sinner, because everyone would think that you could have changed the situation, but you just watched the humans lose everything. Yang Cheng's mouth was half open, and he couldn't speak. He really hadn't considered this. Although Qiang Wei didn't finish her words, Yang Cheng already knew what the woman meant. With his special role, it was impossible for him to take it for granted that he could stay out of this. Yes, he didn't care about the hostility of the Protoss or the humans, but his family, the people around him, everything that was related to him. Could he really stay out of it? Whether it was the humans or the Protoss. Once they vented their anger, the consequences were not something he could absolutely control. Not to mention others, the simplest example was Hua Xia's Yang family. Any random cultivator could cause fatal damage. Did he have to protect everyone on the island? Seeing the uncertain expression on Yang Cheng's face, Qiang Wei smiled and held Yang Cheng's arm with both hands. She said firmly, "Don't worry, no matter what choice you make, at least us sisters will have no regrets. No one will care whether your choice is right or wrong, because such a situation is not something you can control, is it?" "No," Yang Cheng suddenly vetoed. He raised his head, and a pair of hawk-like eyes revealed a blazing brilliance. "Qiang Wei, this time you are wrong. Your man, I have never liked a situation that I can't control." "Hubby." Qiang Wei felt a throbbing in her soul, and she couldn't react. It was as if something had touched a nerve in Yang Cheng's heart that had detonated an explosive. "I can't tolerate this going on so absurdly. No matter what it is, as long as my people are involved and threatened, they should be stopped. No one can stop me." After Yang Cheng finished speaking, he forcefully held Qiang Wei in his arms, kissed the woman's ear heavily, and said thank you. The next moment, Yang Cheng had disappeared from the seaside and appeared outside the castle. Lin Ruoshi was holding Lanlin's hand and was about to enter the castle when they were suddenly stopped by Yang Cheng. The mother and daughter and the other women beside them were a little puzzled. Yang Cheng took a deep breath, bent down, hugged his daughter, and touched Lanlin's face. Then he stood up and said to Lin Ruoshi, "Wife, I don't go." Before Yang Cheng could say anything, Lin Ruoshi had already resolutely shouted to stop him. The woman's face was gloomy, and there was a rare look of anger on her face. Her cold eyes were bone-chilling, like the goddess of winter. The other women were also shocked by Lin Ruoshi's expression and shout. When they realized what it meant, they all looked at Yang Cheng in shock. Yang Cheng looked at his wife with a complicated gaze and said with a bitter smile, "I haven't said, even if you don't say it, I know what you're going to do. I won't allow you to participate in the battle." Lin Ruoshi said in a tone without any room for discussion. Yang Cheng frowned. Although he could usually give in to his women, when he seriously wanted to do something, no one could stop him. He said directly, "Lin Ruoshi, I've decided. Take care of the child. I'll come back as soon as possible." Lin Ruoshi's delicate body trembled. It was unknown whether it was because of anger or grievance. Suddenly, she stepped forward and grabbed Yang Cheng's wrist. "Don't go. I beg you, for me, and for the child." Lin Ruoshi lowered her head, as if she didn't dare to look at Yang Cheng's eyes at this moment. Lanlan saw that her father and mother seemed to be about to quarrel. She bit her lip and widened her watery eyes innocently, not daring to say anything. Yang Cheng seemed to laugh at himself. "Just now, I might have been a little hesitant, but now, I feel that I have to go. There are some things that I have to face sooner or later." Lin Ruoshi's hand that was grabbing Yang Cheng trembled and gradually loosened. Yang Cheng exhaled and said, "I'm leaving. You stay at home and look after the child." After saying that, Yang Cheng pushed Lin Ruoshi's hand away and disappeared from the castle. Lin Ruoshi's arm hung desolately. Her back was full of powerlessness and frustration. It was as if she had not let go of Yang Cheng's hand, but everything. Chapter 1628. Illusory Realm, Xiantian Island. For thousands of years, the heavenly palace that had been incomparably solemn had been baptized by battles and tormented to the point that only ruins were left. The buildings that were riddled with holes and a large number of cultivators' corpses that were smashed into a bloody mess were too horrible to look at. Right above the floating area was the formation Eye of the 12 capital heaven celestial demon formation. The formation I was like a mysterious, unknown ball of light. emitting a gentle white-gold brilliance, like a round sun that was hundreds of feet wide. Under the boundless golden formation, three figures were standing under the light ball of the formation eye, silently staring at the masterpiece of the ancient immortals. Hephaestus, are you sure this thing works? Hera, who was wearing a long green dress, turned her head and looked at the old monk beside her. This kind-looking monk in a kasaya was Master Yin Yun, also known as the fire god Hephaestus. In Hephaestus's hand, there was a golden sawtooth-shaped magic treasure that was very eye-catching, engraved with a large number of obscure runes. If Meng Xiaoyao or Yu Shiwening were present, they might be able to immediately recognize that these were runes from the ancient times. Hephaestus looked at Hera with an exceptionally gentle gaze and said leisurely, "I've been on Xiantian Island for more than 300 years, thinking of ways to break this formation every day. The wisdom and power contained in this formation is not as simple as we first thought. If we want to break the formation by force, it'll be very difficult. Even if we can open a gap for a short time, it will be immediately covered by the overbearing spiritual pressure inside, and it will easily cause turbulence and destroy the exit. But later, I found that the formation eye, which is the most terrifying spiritual pressure, is instead the only possible breakthrough, because this formation eye contains the most crucial runes of the formation. Therefore, I spent hundreds of years collecting and studying ancient books to understand the ancient runes and formation techniques. Then, I spent nearly 30 years secretly collecting materials before I successfully forged this reverse wheel. This reverse wheel can't open the formation immediately, but it can gradually slow down the operation of the formation eye. In the end, it will cause the spiritual pressure inside the formation to weaken, allowing Zeus inside the formation to have a chance to break out. Hee, Hephaestus, is it really so magical? Then what are you waiting for? Hermes urged from the side. Hephaestus helplessly said, "Don't be anxious. I've observed that the formation I will be at its weakest at noon due to the excessive yang qi. At that time, it will be the easiest to place the reverse wheel inside. Otherwise, it's highly likely that we'll be injured. I don't care about what you said, as long as Zeus can come out as soon as possible." "Humph, so that bitch doesn't always look so arrogant," Hera said disdainfully. Hermes smirked. "I say, Hera, now that things have come to this, the outcome has been decided. Even if your old lover Zeus comes out, he won't put you in front of Athena. Strength is everything. It's useless for you to be jealous of her. Everything is still under her control. You've already lost." Hera glared at him coldly and was about to say something, but she frowned and sneered. "I was just worried that I had nothing to do. It seems that some stupid humans are in a hurry to die. I'll leave it to you. I won't make a move," Hephaestus said indifferently. His attention was still on the formation eye, and he didn't take it too seriously. He. You won't have the chance to make a move. This motley crew isn't even enough to fill the gaps between our teeth." Hermes' feet had already spread out his wings, and he summoned the golden double serpent staff in his hands. It was a group of illusion cultivators led by Luo Qianxiu and the others. At this time, they instantly rushed over. Nearly 100 experts above the dark water stage surrounded the three. "I didn't expect that you humans don't even know how to escape. You only know how to die." Hermes laughed mockingly. The group of Huaxia cultivators were full of anger. Everyone gathered their true qi, ready to fight to the death at any time. Luo Qianxiu's gaze noticed the golden Dharma wheel in Master Yin Yun's hand, and his face immediately darkened. He said to Su Shaogong and the others, "The Dharma wheel in the fire god's hand seems to be engraved with many formation runes. I'm afraid it's a magic treasure used to destroy the formation. We must not let him destroy the formation." "I understand. In other words, we have to deal with this bald donkey first. Yin Yun, you bastard who will die a horrible death. We've been friends for hundreds of years, but I didn't expect you to be so cunning. Today, I'll take your dog life." Lu Xiuan and the others from Hongmeng hated him the most. At this time, they roared and had already taken out their magic treasures, rushing out. "Stupid! Without waiting for Lu Xiuan and the others to attack, Hermes had already appeared in front of everyone at the speed of light. On the golden double serpent staff in his hands, the snake's ruby-red eyes flashed with a bewitching red light. In an instant, more than 10 Hongmeng experts were stunned. Their bodies stopped in midair, and they looked around blankly, as if there was something strange around them. Very quickly, they seemed to have seen some enemy and began to attack the people around them. Oh no, they've been confused by their own illusions. Luo Qinqiu frowned. His true essence surged, and he suddenly threw out dozens of purple lightning bolts. The golden crow primordial fire burned fiercely as he summoned his demonic heart weapon and rushed towards Hermes. Hee, why are you so excited? I haven't even started playing. Hermes turned the double serpent staff and released a hallucinatory dream realm towards Luo Qinqiu. Luo Qinqiu was already prepared. Suddenly, the demonic heart weapon exploded violently in front of him. Boom! A deafening sound rang out, and the demonic heart weapon turned into a huge blood mist, releasing in the air like a gorgeous firework. Following which, the blood mist gathered together and returned to the demonic heart weapon. But it was precisely this explosion that caused Lu Xiuan and the others to regain their senses. They looked at Hermes with fear and anger, knowing that they had been fooled. If it was the Hermes of the past, he would not have been able to fool these experts with illusions. But now, with the help of Gaia's heart, Hermes' mental strength had become so strong that it overshadowed everyone's true essence cultivation. Naturally, he could easily fool these cultivators. TSK. I don't like it when people spoil my fun. Hermes' figure had appeared behind Luo Qinqiu, his face sinister. On the double serpent staff, one of the golden flying snakes had actually come to life. It flicked its tongue and bit towards the back of Luo Qinqiu's head. Only then did everyone realize that the Hermes they had seen just now was actually an illusion. It was enough to show that Hermes' strength alone was superior to all the cultivators here. Luo Qinqiu's face was also pale. He had no time to dodge. His opponent's speed and moves were superior to his. But he was not afraid. He was unwilling. He had actually been defeated by such a trick. Just at this moment, an azure sword chi that was like a shock wave appeared out of thin air without any warning. An exquisite and precise flower needle condensed its power into a single point and shattered the flying snake. Azure sword chi, 27 layered heavens, shadow, breaking stab. Fortunately, Su Xiaogong had already noticed Luo Qinqiu's back and was able to block Hermes' attack in time. Hermes saw his flying snake shatter into golden powder and was obviously unhappy. Although the golden flying snake quickly condensed back into the staff, it still made him extremely angry. Your reaction is really fast. Hermes' figure flickered a few more times, and in the air, there were already more than 10 of him. It was almost impossible to distinguish the real from the fake. Su Xiaogong's flying sword made a large circle, and wherever the sword arc passed, a large expanse of azure sword chi would sweep out, shattering these illusions with the fastest speed possible. The other cultivators also used their own unique skills to destroy these illusions one by one. Finally, Hermes' real body was revealed, and he laughed sinisterly in the air. So many of you against me. Do you really think that ants can bite an elephant to death? 31 layered heavens. Spirit pierces the rainbow. Su Xiaogong threw out his flying sword without hesitation. The huge azure sword radiated an intense red light, and the intense friction between the sword chi and spiritual energy produced a blazing high temperature. Pooh! This lightning-fast sword pierced through Hermes' body. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Hermes' mouth, as if he couldn't believe that he actually failed to snatch this sword. The morale of the cultivators in the illusion realm soared, and many of them cheered loudly. It seemed that they were not completely hopeless this time, but in the next moment, everyone's mood plummeted. They saw Hermes suddenly raise his head, and with a strange smile, the blood at the corner of his mouth instantly disappeared. Sorry, the blood is also fake. Chapter 1629. The cultivators found it hard to accept that Hermes had been toying with them from the beginning to the end. This indistinguishable illusion was truly like a nightmare, lingering around everyone. Hera seemed to have lost interest in watching any longer, and coldly snorted, "All right, Mercury, it's enough to just play around. Kill them all." "Hee hee, Hera, but I haven't played enough yet. It's boring to kill them all too quickly." Hermes laughed. "Since you're not going to do it, then I'll do it myself." A cruel sneer appeared on Hera's face, and she summoned the huge golden-red longbow in her hand. This bow didn't have a bowstring, but it didn't affect its awe-inspiring immortal artifact's spiritual pressure at all. Not good. It's the Ning family's divine bow, setting sun. A weak water stage great elder cried out in alarm. "I never thought that the Ning family would actually hand this treasure over to a traitor. Who knew that she was from the God clan? How sinister and despicable." The setting sun divine bow was said to be the divine bow that the ancient Ho-E shot the sun with. Of course, that wasn't true, but it was indeed a quasi-immortal bow. When this bow was handed over to the Ning family, it had already fallen to the level of a middle-grade immortal weapon because of some irreparable damage. However, its power was still domineering and fierce. One of the great characteristics of the setting sun divine bow was that it could shoot an unlimited number of setting sun divine arrows. It would change its power according to the user's cultivation level and the time it took to condense it. The higher the cultivation level of the cultivator, the longer the divine arrows could be condensed with the setting sun divine bow. The final power would even exceed the user's cultivation level by more than double, achieving a terrifying effect that could destroy everything. Using your Huaxia cultivator's magic treasure to shoot your group of Huaxia cultivators to death, this should be a good ending. Hera laughed mockingly. Her delicate white hands stretched out in the air and pulled the bowstring of the setting sun divine bow. The invisible bowstring immediately gathered a large amount of blazing fire attribute spiritual energy, and it continued to heat up, forming a dazzling arrow that seemed like it was going to scorch the surrounding space. This action seemed slow, but it was actually very fast. While the group of cultivators were still nervous, it had already condensed. "Sue!" The ear-piercing sound of air tearing pierced through the sky, and the flaming arrow was the first to shoot towards the weak water stage elder who had just recognized the divine bow. That elder was clear-headed, and he immediately circulated his true essence, preparing to dodge. However, just as he was about to move, he abruptly discovered to his horror that he was actually unable to move. "How can this be?" He screamed in his heart as he watched the arrow penetrate his body. The flame burned everything. This weak water stage elder did not even have the chance to struggle. He turned into ashes. His soul was destroyed. The faces of the cultivators present were ashen. Most of them couldn't understand why the elder didn't dodge. Although the setting sun divine bow was powerful, as long as the arrows were dodged, there was nothing to fear. "Naive. You're just at the weak water stage. Do you think you can compete with our power of the law of space?" Hermes clicked his tongue and shook his head. He was naturally well aware that Hera had long since used spatial confinement to control the elder on the spot. In other words, Hera was only shooting dead targets. Hera glanced mockingly at Luo, Qinxiu, and Su Xiaogong, who had ugly expressions on their faces. "You guys seem to be the leaders who came to die? Do you think you're very heroic? I will let you lowly human cultivators understand that you don't even have the qualifications to pretend to be strong in front of our god clan." "Ha ha! Ha ha!" Hera laughed almost crazily, but the movements of her hands did not stop. Her white hands continued to gather divine arrows in the air, and then quickly shot them out. Su 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 su. Accompanied by wave after wave of piercing sounds, the divine arrows burning with scorching hot flames were like homing missiles, bombarding the bodies of the weak cultivators one after another. It must be known that these were all cultivators above the dark water stage. But even the supreme elders of the weak water stage who had lived for hundreds of years were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered, without any power to resist. One after another, their bodies were completely incinerated. They didn't even have the chance to open their shields and regret coming here. Luo Qinxiu, Su Xiaogong, and the others all had ashen faces. Although they didn't think that they would win, but they also didn't think that the difference in strength would be so great. Hera's strength, according to the realm of cultivators, was probably already at the peak of the Shangqing realm, and was more than a level higher than the strongest among them. There was no need for the other main gods to make a move. Just Hera alone was enough to flatten the illusion. As expected, they were only here to die. The fate of humanity. Could it be that it would end so miserably? Thinking of all kinds of things, even a man like Luo Qinxiu, who had experienced the vicissitudes of life, couldn't help but have his eyes turn red, revealing his sorrow. In the blink of an eye, there were only a dozen or so people left on the field, including Lu Xuan, Yin Xiuming, and some of the others of the highest cultivation, but without exception, no one attacked anymore. Humiliation, it was indescribable. At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with a kind of sorrow for the weakness of humanity. What a pity the show is going to end so soon. Did you guys enjoy watching to your heart content? Hee. I feel that there are too few people, not enough for me to kill. Hera smiled as if it was a pity. This time, she aimed her divine bow at Luo Qinxiu. You could try to resist, although in my eyes, your move is as laughable as a 3-year-old child's play, Hera said disdainfully. With that said, an arrow that had been condensed for a longer time shot through the air. Rustle. Luo Qinxiu closed his eyes peacefully, as if he was thinking about some beautiful memory. Pump! Flames flashed, and once again there was a violent explosion. But what shocked everyone was that this time, the person was fine. The glaring platinum flames dissipated, and everyone present saw that at some unknown time, someone had quietly appeared a few meters in front of Luo Qinxiu. Yang Cheng. The group of cultivators cried out in surprise. Hades? The 3 main gods all frowned, looking a little puzzled and displeased. The person who came was Yang Cheng, who had just arrived. They only saw Yang Cheng curling his lips somewhat gloomily, slowly lowering his right hand. Just a moment ago, Yang Cheng had used this hand to forcibly receive Hera's arrow. You guys are really something. I thought about my life. I came a little late. How did you guys fight until there are only so few people left? Damn it, killing so fast. It's different from what they show on TV. Did you guys learn from me? Yang Cheng cursed to himself, feeling a little conflicted that he had come a little late, and so many people had died. In this way, the effect of him rushing over was not perfect. Fortunately, a few important people were still alive. If Hera had killed the big ones to the small ones, then he would really want to cry, but have no tears. Hades, what do you mean by this? Hera grinned, but there was not the slightest hint of a good talk in her eyes. Yang Cheng looked her up and down with interest for a while. You are Hera? TSK. I didn't expect you to be another main god who reincarnated into the body of the Huaxia people with a purpose. But at least it's better than Hermes being a bat. Your skin is not bad. You reincarnated into a good life. If you weren't Hera, maybe the Ning family would use you to find an arrogant son-in-law. What did you say? Hera was a little angry. What is this guy here for? What nonsense is he talking about? Yang Cheng smiled evilly and waved his hand. I'm joking. I'm just joking. The atmosphere here is too tense. Relax a little. Hades advising how to joke with Hera. Her strength is comparable to Poseidon's. You should imagine to what extent Poseidon has recovered and why he is here. If you have something to say it quickly. Hermes narrowed his eyes. Yang Cheng shrugged and said with a smile, Actually, it's nothing. I just feel that you guys have caused enough trouble this time. There's no need to go so far. Oh? Then what do you want? Hera asked with a cold smile. Yang Cheng clapped his hands and said cheerfully, I was waiting for you to say that. That's what I was thinking. Why don't we call everyone together? It's best if Athena comes too. Then everyone can relax and play cards and play mahjong. Things can be discussed at the table. First, we should consider not letting the Earth continue to cool down. How many people will die? Turning the Earth into a ball of ice is not fun either. The main reason is that all the animals are dead. Where am I going to find meat for my daughter? Besides, if we fight and kill, don't implicate the ordinary people. We can think of a way to solve it internally. As long as it is fair to both sides, I will definitely remain neutral and not help either side. Don't you think I'm very smart? Chapter 16:30. Yang Cheng's words caused everyone's expressions to be a little strange. In such an occasion, saying such words was not so much very smart as absurd. As expected, Hera's eyes were exceptionally cold. She said unhappily, Hades, if you're just here to cause trouble, then I advise you to return to your island first. Otherwise, we'll have to consider whether you've betrayed the Protoss and joined the Huaxia Empire's camp. Aya, this is the first time we've met. Why are your words so unpleasant? Didn't I say that it's mainly because there's no benefit to either side? There's no need to be too ruthless. Yang Cheng said with a grin. Hera shouted, cut the crap. You have two choices. First, get out of the way and watch from the side. Second, help us kill this group of ugly ants. In an instant, the oppressive might of Hera's space laws was released. Like a giant invisible hand, the entire profound Heaven Island was enveloped by it. Luo Qinxiu and the other cultivators were shocked to discover that they could not even move a finger. This was the power of the laws of space that a sovereign's current spiritual energy could reach. Hermes and Hephaestus both revealed rather pleased expressions. They were very confident in Hera's strength. This was because other than Zeus and Athena, Poseidon and Hera were the strongest main gods, and they had always been so. And the old Hades was not a match for Hera either. One could imagine that the divine spark that Yang Cheng had inherited was even more impossible for his mental strength to contend against Hera. As for Yang Cheng's cultivation, even if he had reached the upper clear realm, they did not think that Hera's spatial laws combined with her own true essence of the Tai Ching stage would be inferior to Yang Cheng's. The higher the level, the smaller the gap, the more difficult it was to make up for. Yang Cheng revealed a troubled expression and clicked his tongue a few times. In the midst of the tense atmosphere, Yang Cheng took out a pack of cigarettes. Taking out a cigarette, Yang Cheng slowly put it in his mouth. Then he searched the pockets of his clothes and found that the lighter was also in his spatial ring. Thus, he took out the lighter and lit a fire for himself. Because it was high up in the sky, the temperature and the wind were not very convenient, so it took a few tries before it lit up. Soon, Yang Cheng took a deep breath, and a white mist curled up and exhaled from his nostrils. The cultivators in the illusion were about to collapse. How addicted was this guy to smoke? Why are you still smoking at this time? Yang Cheng smiled awkwardly and shook his head at the crowd. Don't misunderstand. It's not that I'm addicted. It's just that I'm also nervous at this time. I need to light a cigarette to calm down. I say, Hades, stop pretending. You've messed around enough. It's time to go back. Hermes smiled mischievously. Yang Cheng licked his lips and threw away the cigarette, but said he had smoked in 2 mouthfuls. He sighed heavily and said with a serious face, As I said just now, all of you stop. Hera felt it was ridiculous and sneered. Hades, do you really think I won't touch you? The revival of the Protoss is unstoppable. No one is allowed to stand in the way. Yang Cheng's face also darkened. It was as if a thick gray aura of death shrouded around him. In an instant, he was filled with a terrifying, murderous aura. Old woman, I call you Hera because I think highly of you. You'd better not misunderstand. When I know you, I'm called Hades. But if I don't know you anymore, I'm called Yang Cheng. I'll say it again. Either you stop and negotiate, or get lost to samsara immediately. You don't seem to understand one thing. I'm not here to negotiate with you. I'm not here to beg you. What I say is the law of heaven. If you don't listen, then die. The 3 chief gods' faces turned pale. They were clearly furious. Hera gritted her teeth. How dare you? How dare you, a mere half-human half-god, speak to me like this? Today, no one can save your face. I'll let you know who you are. Hera reached out and made a grabbing motion. The space around Yang Cheng was instantly stacked with tens of thousands of layers. The dense and heavy power of space was like a heavy machine that could crush everything. It wrapped around Yangcheng. The setting sun god, Bao, in Hera's hand had already condensed a blazing light arrow that was more powerful than all the arrows from before. Go! The light arrow was like an intense beam of light that tore the entire sky apart. It went straight for Yangcheng's heart. Yangcheng didn't move at all from start to finish. He looked at the setting sun god, arrow shooting toward him with a gloomy look in his eyes. Just as the divine arrow was about to pierce through Yangcheng, a silver-blue electric arc suddenly bloomed around Yangcheng's body. It was like a huge silver-blue electric flower had bloomed. It was dazzling and dazzling. Bang! The setting sun god arrow that was so powerful just now was completely shattered the moment it came into contact with the Shang-Qing heavenly lightning. It didn't even cause a ripple, not to mention the Shang-Qing heavenly lightning. Even the Tai-Ching heavenly lightning was extremely lethal to the three chief gods present. One could imagine how shocked Hera and the other gods were when the Shang-Qing heavenly lightning, which should not have appeared on Earth, was released from Yangcheng's body in such a strange manner. This Shang-Qing. No, impossible. You've comprehended the Shang-Qing heavenly lightning. Hera screamed. She didn't have any of the goddess-like attitude she had just now. It was as if she couldn't believe that Yangcheng could advance so quickly. They could still deal with the Tai-Ching heavenly lightning. But the Shang-Qing heavenly lightning, even if they recovered to their peak, it would be difficult for them to resist. Unless Zeus and Athena at their peak came personally. Yangcheng casually took a step forward. He communicated with all things in the world and had the awe-inspiring heavenly might that ruled over all things. In an instant, the wind and thunder rumbled. The dark clouds rolled like angry waves as they rushed over. The tens of thousands of layers of parallel space energy that Hera used to imprison Yangcheng was also completely shattered at this moment. The silver-blue heavenly lightning began to shuttle between the clouds like countless electric dragons. It could turn the entire Xiantian island into dust at any time. Hera's eyes were filled with unwillingness. But she already couldn't think of any way to defeat this man who looked down on the world like a god. Hephaestus, don't wait anymore. Hurry! Hera suddenly turned around and shouted at Hephaestus. Fire God immediately understood what she meant. He suddenly threw the reverse Dharma wheel towards the eye of the formation. Lu Xiuan and the others knew what that thing could mean. They immediately shouted at Yangcheng. Hurry and stop it. He wants to destroy the formation. Yangcheng didn't notice that Fire God was waiting for this move. He waved his hand without hesitation. A Shang-Qing heavenly lightning was like a giant sword that pierced through the clouds. It cut through the sky and rushed towards the reverse Dharma wheel. If the three main gods wanted to protect the Dharma wheel, they would be hit by the Shang-Qing heavenly lightning. They definitely didn't dare to protect it. However, Yangcheng was wrong. At the same time, Hera had already teleported and blocked the way of the Shang-Qing heavenly lightning. She wants to die. Yangcheng was startled. Would Hera really choose to die in order to save Zeus? If she was hit by the Shang-Qing heavenly lightning, it would be difficult for her to reincarnate. Her godhead might be directly destroyed. But the next scene made Yangcheng frown again. He saw that the place where Hera was standing was emitting a golden light. It was like a golden figure. After flashing there, it withstood all the power of the Shang-Qing heavenly lightning. As for Hera herself, she had a look of lingering fear. She flashed behind Fire God, safe and sound. Yangcheng saw it clearly. The golden figure was actually derived from a small golden ball-like object. It looked exactly like Hera, like a golden clone. In this moment of daze, Yangcheng suddenly thought of the only possibility. Golden apple? You used a golden apple? Legend had it that Mother Earth, the Titan god, Gaia, gave Hera a golden apple tree as a congratulatory gift during the wedding of Zeus and Hera. The golden apple was also an important treasure in many ancient Greek myths. It was said that it would only bear one in 1,000 years. But as far as Yangcheng knew, those myths were mostly fabricated by the ancient people. The real golden apple's effect was to protect its owner from any fatal injury or danger. This was also one of the life-saving artifacts that Hera possessed that was completely different from the other main gods. No one knew how many golden apples Hera had, but there was no doubt that if they wanted to kill her, they would not have a chance to succeed unless they killed her hundreds of times. Using the golden apple once, the reverse will successfully enter the eye of the formation. In an instant, the formation seemed to be hit by something. It was as if a gear in a huge object was stuck, and it began to stagger with difficulty. The cultivators in the illusion realm were very worried. They stared at the formation, but there was nothing they could do. Hephaestus showed a hint of excitement and joy. Good. The formation is starting to slow down. It won't take long. With Zeus' strength, he should be able to tear a crack and come out. Fortunately, I had a trick up my sleeve. Hera sneered and looked at Yang Chung with a complicated expression. Hades, although your strength caught us off guard, but you still can't stop it. Once we bring Zeus out, he will definitely be more skilled. At this time, Yang Chung thought of another thing. Previously in the 10,000 demon realm, Song Tianxing said that the one who chased after him was a female master. When she was almost sucked into the demon-locked tower, a golden treasure helped the female master block the disaster. Chapter 16:31. It's you? It was you who chased after my master, Song Tianxing, and tried to snatch the endless resolve restoration scripture, wasn't it? Yang Cheng's eyes were gloomy. This seemed to be the case. In this way, Hera had already become enemies with him. If it was because of his own understanding that he would enter the deity transformation stage sooner or later, so the favor given by Yin Sanyang was not too great, then what Song Tianxing gave was definitely a huge favor. Even if there was no real apprenticeship in Yang Cheng's heart, he still regarded Song Tianxing as his lifelong master. This woman almost killed Song Tianxing, which made Yang Chung unable to accept. Hera raised her eyebrows. Oh, you already know? Have you already seen that poor guy? So what? If he hadn't escaped by chance, I would have already gotten the endless resolve restoration scripture, and you wouldn't be so arrogant today. Yang Chung asked suspiciously, who told you about the endless resolve restoration scripture? Previously, Luo Chinchio said that a mysterious person secretly sent a message to him, but he never knew who it was. Could it be Hera too? Hera sneered. I didn't need to tell you originally, but seeing that you were so stupid, it's okay for me to pity you. It's not anyone else, it's Athena. What? Yang Chung was stunned. Don't be surprised. Hera chuckled and said, the endless resolve restoration scripture that you're cultivating is the cultivation technique used by the mysterious expert who lured Zeus into the 12 citadel demons formation 20,000 years ago. It's also the cultivation technique that we've been searching for the past 20,000 years. If you want to defeat him completely, the most fundamental way is naturally to learn his technique or even crack it. Although Athena has the great prophecy technique, the more powerful the opponent, the more difficult it is to have accurate predictions. After finally finding this technique, she told me the information of the cultivator. Although I disdain to accept her gift, I have no reason to let go of this opportunity. Compared to you, Song Tianxing is obviously easier for me to deal with, so you should be glad that I didn't come to you earlier. Yang Chung clenched his fists. Although he had already guessed it, he was still furious at Athena when he found out that she was the mastermind. All right, if you want to take revenge on me, then bring it on. If there's nothing else, we'll be leaving. Hera snorted arrogantly and motioned for Hephaestus and Hermes to leave with her. Lu Xiuan and the others immediately woke up Yang Chung anxiously. Yang Chung, don't let them go. The eye of the grand formation has been damaged, and our strengths are utterly insufficient to turn the situation around. If we wait for the grand formation to collapse and allow Zeus and the myriad of primeval demons to escape, then wouldn't we be completely powerless to turn the situation around? A trace of ruthlessness flashed in Yang Cheng's eyes as he said, so what if they come out? I'll kill as many as they come out. With that, Yang Chung smirked coldly at the three chief gods. Since you guys aren't willing to listen to me, even though I've told you nicely, don't blame me for digging out your roots. Before the three chief gods could react, Yangcheng had already turned into a silver-blue bolt of lightning and flew towards the north. Not good. He's going to the Tree of Earth. Hermes cursed. We can't let him destroy the Tree of Earth. Let's go. Hera's expression also changed. The three chief gods couldn't care less about the cultivators in the illusion at all. In the blink of an eye, they had already chased after the North Pole. The cultivators looked at each other a few times. In the end, they gritted their teeth. No matter what, how could they retreat at a time like this? Thus, they all followed. After everyone left, the mystic heaven island returned to its deathly silence under the grand formation. At this moment, a dark figure appeared out of thin air. He was wearing a black robe and had an iron face. He looked strange and eerie. This was the mysterious black-robed man who had been guarding the North Pole under Athena's orders. However, after the chief gods went over to guard, Black Robe disappeared without a trace. It turned out that he had been secretly hiding in the illusion all along. Black Robe cackled a few times. He looked at the grand formation that was gradually slowing down and the spiritual pressure was weakening. He was extremely pleased with himself. My king, it won't be long before you lead my millions of people to return to the human world. My mission is finally about to be accomplished. At the North Pole, ice and snow were flying in the air. It was like a white dreamland. The Tree of Earth, which looked like the work of the gods, was like a giant pillar that held up the sky. The canopy of the tree covered the sky. The branches in the distance seemed to touch the sky. The moment Yangcheng arrived, he was also stunned by the scene in front of him for a few seconds. He couldn't help but be stunned. Yangcheng's face revealed a trace of shock that was difficult to conceal. There were not many things in this world that could shock him. Obviously, Yangcheng's arrival could not be hidden. Just the terrifying dark thunderclouds that came together with him had already covered the North Pole with a thick layer of murderous intent. The silver-blue Shang-Qing heavenly thunder seemed to be Yangcheng's most intimate partner. It circled around his body, waiting for his call to destroy everything. To outsiders, the silver-blue light surrounding Yangcheng and hovering in the air was extremely fatal and could not be avoided. Soon, a few figures appeared not far in front of Yangcheng. The god of ocean, the goddess of love, the moon goddess, the sun god, and the god of war. 5 familiar faces. At this moment, the look in their eyes was not as relaxed as usual. Behind Yangcheng, Hera, the god of fire, and Hermes had also caught up. Including Yangcheng himself, there were 9 chief gods gathered under the Tree of Earth. Although Luo Qianxiu and the other cultivators had also arrived, they did not dare to go near. They could only watch from afar. Most of them were afraid of the scene. At this moment, Yangcheng's body was like a super-nuclear bomb. No one dared to go near him. Everyone was a little far away. Yangcheng scanned his surroundings. Finally, he pointed at the Tree of Earth and said to Kristen, "This is what you were hiding from me before." The Earth's temperature dropped, and the divinity's recovery grew stronger. It was all because of this tree. Venus's expression was obviously a little stiff. Her usual playful look was nowhere to be seen. As if she knew something was coming, she nodded heavily. Hades, this is the original appearance of Gaia's heart. This is the mother of the gods, our source, the Tree of Earth. Yangcheng frowned and spread his divine sense. Suddenly, he sensed something. His figure flashed and immediately came to the top of the Tree of Earth. The 8 chief gods followed closely behind and looked at Yangcheng nervously, afraid that he would do something. After all, none of them could withstand the Shang-Qing heavenly thunder that Yangcheng had just displayed. Even if they were unharmed, there was no guarantee that the Tree of Earth would not be damaged. Yangcheng's gaze focused on the top of a branch. He saw that there were a few golden flowers wrapped in a few golden leaves, swaying beautifully. And where one of the flowers had withered, there was a fruit that was emitting a soft golden brilliance that was full of vitality. This was a faint golden orb. Although it was still very small, only the size of a thumb, it contained an incomparably complex and powerful life force. Spiritual energy. This is quintessence. Yangcheng finally realized what it was. It was the quintessence of the gods. Although it was not as powerful as the quintessence of the chief gods, it was undoubtedly a quintessence, and it was gradually growing. That's right. The reason why we say that the tree of earth is the mother of the gods, and Gaia is our mother goddess, is that we were all born from the tree of earth, and we grew from quintessence. We were the first to be born from the tree of earth, and the 12 quintessences at the top of the tree crown. Because our power surpassed all the gods that were born later, we became the rulers of the gods, the chief gods. What you see now is just the budding stage of the quintessence. In about half a year, there will be quintessence that will gradually mature, and they will transform into members of the gods. Aphrodite knew that there was no way to hide it, so she decided to tell everything to Yang Chung. Although Yang Chung had always felt that Gaia's heart was extremely important, he did not expect it to be so important. It turned out that this was what Athena was after for the revival of the gods. With the tree of earth, the gods would truly begin to produce the gods. One by one, the quintessence would grow. Sooner or later, there would be thousands of members of the gods. At that time, thousands of gods with the law of space would not be an opponent that humans could imagine and resist. Chapter 1632. Yang Chung suddenly realized that he only had two choices at the moment. Let the Protoss occupy Earth, or destroy the tree of Earth and strangle the hope of the Protoss revival. Peaceful coexistence? It was all a dream. There was another key question. Yang Chung thought, since once the tree of Earth was revived, it could continuously reproduce the Protoss. Then why did the Protoss not try their best to find Gaia's heart in the first place? Moreover, the original member of the Protoss, Astrius, had specially used the divine artifact Serene to seal Gaia's heart in ice and hide it well. Was it just because they were worried that the Earth would cool down? Moreover, Hera said that the person who lured Zeus into the formation 20,000 years ago, who was it that they wanted to defeat? Could it be Yang Yuansu's master? If it was true, then they should also know the current situation of the Tree of Earth. Could it be that they could not stop all this from happening? Or there was another reason? Hades, we have always regarded you as one of our own. Now that we are facing the most critical moment for the Protoss, I think you will definitely stand on our side, right? Aphrodite asked sincerely with sparkling eyes. Yang Chun snapped out of his deep thoughts and turned his head to look at the gods around him. He then let out a chuckle. One of our own? Humph. You really think of me as one of your own? Gaia's heart, the tree of earth, such a huge impact. I can't believe I only saw it now with my own eyes. The gods were somewhat embarrassed, especially Apollo and the others who had always been on good terms with Yang Chung. Hades, you have to understand our difficulties. We did not intend to hide it from you. We just wanted to let things develop smoothly. Artemis explained. Bullshit. Yang Chung scolded loudly. Do you think I'm a fool? This tree of earth, the reason why it was forcibly sealed by Astrius more than 20,000 years ago, and you did not find it first, is it not because this damn tree will destroy everything? The over-gods' faces suddenly became extremely ugly, mostly pale, shocked, and complicated. When Yang Chung saw the expressions of the gods, he was even more convinced of his guess. If I'm not wrong, the tree of earth is not only absorbing the energy of the sun's radiation, but it is also absorbing a large number of elements from the earth's interior. Judging from the current global cooling rate, in another year or so, humans will be completely unable to survive on the earth. Even if the Protoss could continue to live on this planet, it would not be long before it became another Mars, as the Earth's energy and vitality were being rapidly consumed by the tree of Earth. The reason why you came to Earth from Mars 20,000 years ago should be that the tree that gave birth to you and raised you has also become the executioner of the fate of your planet. Yang Cheng's words made all the deities pale. It was obvious that he had guessed correctly. The tree of Earth was indeed like an extreme fusion of contradictions. She created life, and the god race that she created was born with a powerful divinity. But at the same time, she was devouring the life of the planet. She was like a mother who used overload to make her children stronger. The strength of the Protoss was built on the rapid destruction of the planet. Yang Chung saw that they did not speak and continued to sneer. You must have known all this long ago. That's why you are hesitating. I remember when you were talking about Gaia's heart. Some people thought that Athena was crazy and fearful because you knew that if Gaia's heart was revived, the Earth would repeat the mistakes of Mars, didn't you? With that, Yang Chung looked at the Apollo siblings. Thinking about how they looked when they first saw Gaia's heart in Korea, it was easy to understand now. You're right, Hera said arrogantly. Hades, the guesses are almost right. However, you should think carefully about why we decided to revive Gaia's heart, even though we knew that the life of the Earth would be greatly shortened because of the Tree of Earth. Yang Chung frowned. He was also confused about this. It stood to reason that the Protoss had already lost a home. Did they want to lose another one? A faint smile of madness appeared on Hera's face. Let me tell you, because any planet that breeds life in the universe has its own lifespan. The life of the Earth may still be very long in the hands of humans, but even a star like the Sun will become a white dwarf and be destroyed one day. And in the hands of the Protoss, the life of the Earth will indeed be shortened by more than half, or even more. But so what? Lowly and insignificant creatures like humans do not deserve to have this blue planet in the universe. It is like a blue pearl in the Milky Way. It belongs to a powerful race. It belongs to the Protoss. Compared to humans who don't know how to cherish the Earth, the Protoss can make better use and transform this planet. Instead of being like stupid humans who are still experiencing this primitive and barbaric social system, developing this low-level and backward civilization, and at the same time, constantly polluting and wasting the resources of this planet. To put it bluntly, a bunch of bugs are not qualified to occupy a beautiful palace. Do you understand? Yang Chung was stunned. He did not expect Hera to say such a thing, straightforward and somewhat cruel. Although the other main gods were a little dissatisfied with Hera's straightforward words, no one spoke out against it. Compared to the Protoss on Mars, today's humans were indeed too backward. If the Protoss really ruled the Earth, then the Earth civilization would enter a qualitative leap. To put it bluntly, even after 20,000 years, the main gods were just playing with the world, high and mighty, and did not treat human beings as equal beings. They did not find Gaia's heart before because they were trapped in the pain of losing their home, and they were worried that the Earth would become another barren home. Of course, the mysterious master from 20,000 years ago also made them a little afraid. The Huaxia cultivators who heard these words in the distance were filled with righteous indignation. At this moment, they not only represented the cultivators in the illusion, but also the humans living on Earth. The contempt of the Protoss for human beings naturally made them angry, but they did not dare to easily go up and die. Hades, what Hera said is a little too much, but you are a rational person. You should know that in fact, all of this is just the law of the weak being preyed on by the strong. If human beings were really not fated to die, then after 20,000 years, they would not still be played by us in the palm of our hands. Humans are really too weak, and they're simply unable to go against our Protoss. All of this has been arranged by fate, so don't make it difficult for us anymore. As the main god, you will share the glory of our Protoss revival. Aphrodite came to Yang Cheng's side and wanted to reach out and pat Yang Cheng's shoulder comfortingly. Yang Cheng, who had been lowering his head and silent, flashed and came to the dense foliage in the distance, avoiding Venus' hand. Enough. Yang Cheng slowly raised his head and glanced at everyone, his tone cold and dull. I'm not interested in listening to your grand strategies to change the world, nor am I interested in listening to your laws of survival of the fittest. I don't want to say anything on behalf of human beings, nor do I want to do anything for them. I just want you to understand one thing. At this point, Yang Cheng's body began to release thicker and thicker, surging Shang-Qing heavenly lightning. The Shang-Qing heavenly lightning was like a giant beast that would go berserk at any time, lying dormant on Yang Cheng's body, ready to strike. You did the right thing. You should have hidden it from me because I'm going to destroy it now. A powerful silver-blue lightning ball, with Yang Cheng as the center, began to expand suddenly, like a human nuclear bomb, about to blow up the entire tree of Earth from the center. No, the gods cried out. Even if the Tree of Earth had its own strong protective energy, it would still be greatly damaged by the concentrated explosion of the Shang-Qing heavenly lightning. Not to mention that there were so many Protoss in the breeding period. For a moment, the 8 main gods rushed forward almost at the same time, and the law of space exploded and surrounded Yang Cheng, trying to stop him. But Yang Cheng's Shang-Qing heavenly lightning was too terrifying, and at this time, none of the 8 main gods could fight it head-on. The space prison was directly disintegrated and shattered, and the main gods who had just approached a little bit instinctively retreated due to the sense of danger. At this moment, a silver light curtain descended from the sky. It seemed gentle, but it was extremely determined to wrap up the area where Yang Cheng was. Chapter 1633. It was like a silver bubble. After colliding with the Shang-Qing heavenly thunder, it strangely did not break. Instead, after a long stalemate, the color of the bubble gradually weakened. Yang Cheng frowned. The Shang-Qing heavenly thunder had actually been countered, and a large amount of silver-blue electric currents were bounced back unwillingly. Although he would not be injured, it was obvious that his Shang-Qing heavenly thunder could not do anything to this silver shield. And this shield was not unfamiliar to him. Aegis shield. Apollo and the other gods showed a hint of joy on their faces, knowing that the Tree of Earth was saved. That was close. Did this bitch have to appear so late? Hera, however, was not happy, and her sharp eyes swept towards the sky. Athena was dressed in a long black silk dress, revealing a pair of snow-white arms and a pair of snow-white feet. No one knew when she had appeared there. It was as silent as before, but just by standing there, it gave off an incomparably heavy mental pressure. Yang Cheng squinted his eyes. Just as he had expected, Athena's strength had reached an amazing level after the recovery of Gaia's heart. Just the pressure from the law of space alone, Yang Cheng could at least conclude that she was stronger than the Shang-Qing peak stage cultivators and was estimated to be at least at the early stage of the Jade Clear stage. Otherwise, this woman would not have been able to resist his Shang-Qing heavenly thunder so easily with the artifact. What made people even more speechless was that she had obviously not recovered to her peak. As Gaia's heart continued to climb one peak after another, perhaps reaching the peak of the Jade Clear stage was not a distant dream. Perhaps the gods 20,000 years ago had come with their peak strength, and the battle of the gods would not have ended like that. However, Yang Cheng did not think that he had no hope of winning. Firstly, Athena had not really reached her peak state, and secondly, he still had at least 2 trump cards that he had not used yet. Athena slowly floated down and confronted Yang Cheng from afar. At this moment, Luo Qinxiu and the other cultivators in the distance were trembling so hard that they found it hard to speak. The awe that Athena gave them was unimaginable. Hades, you shouldn't have obstructed the revival of our god race. You went against the natural law of survival of the fittest. This is foolish, Athena said coldly. It was impossible to tell whether she was happy or angry. Yang Cheng looked at the face that was forever hidden behind the illusory dreamscape and asked, "Back then, was it you who told Luo Qinxiu and Hera that my master and I have the endless resolve restoration scripture?" The deities were stunned. Yang Cheng actually still had the mind to care about such a small matter. He had a fearless look on his face. One had to know that Yang Cheng was still wrapped in the silver light of the Aegis shield. It was questionable whether Athena would let him out easily. Athena silently turned around and looked at Hera. Hera's expression changed slightly, but she snorted coldly and turned her head away disdainfully. Athena seemed to sigh faintly and said to Yang Cheng, "This is no longer important. Regardless of whether I told Hera or not, everything that happened was within my expectations. I can accept the result." Although she said this, everyone present understood that Hera had more or less shifted the blame to Athena in order to stir up conflict between Athena and Yang Cheng. There was no difference between the scheming and scheming of women between main gods. After all, the deities knew that Hera's divination technique wasn't just for show. But just as Athena had said, this was no longer important. Athena had no interest in haggling over such a small matter and defending herself. Yang Qing's expression became a little better. He looked at the silver light around him and said, "Are you going to continue blocking me like this? If your great prophecy technique is really so accurate, then you should know that I haven't used my full strength, right?" The deities were shocked and didn't dare to believe that Yang Cheng hadn't used his full strength. Could it be that his cultivation was higher than the prime clear level? Athena suddenly extended her hand and beckoned gracefully. The silver light around Yang Cheng instantly retreated. A silver light returned to Athena and condensed into a shield that was half the height of a person. It looked like a heavy armor shield of the ancient crusaders. It was silver in color and was engraved with olive leaf patterns. It emitted a dazzling bluish-silver radiance. If one were to look carefully, one would notice that the head of the Medusa was engraved in the middle of it, and it looked rather terrifying. I know that if you disregard everything and use all your strength to destroy the Tree of Earth, I might not be able to stop you. If you don't have the ability to fight me, then you aren't worthy of my effort and attention." Athena's words were even more shocking. She actually admitted what Yang Cheng had said. The deities couldn't help but be puzzled. Athena's aura was obviously much stronger than Yang Cheng's. How could she say something like that? However, Athena's tone suddenly changed, and she said coldly, "If you use your full strength, one of us will definitely die in battle. I will use my divine spark to defend the glory of Mother Goddess Gaia." Athena's law of space suddenly increased again. The entire crown of the Tree of Earth seemed to tremble, and a large number of golden leaves began to tremble. A demonic blue flame descended from the sky and condensed into a 5-feet-long spear in Athena's right hand. The spear's body was made of a unique metal that emitted a faint blue luster, and there was a strange beast totem in the shape of a demon dragon coiling around it. The spearhead was actually burning with a demonic blue flame. It didn't have a fixed shape, and it seemed to be greedily devouring something at any time. This was Athena's other divine weapon, the Spear of Pallas. Before this, Athena had never met an opponent that required her to use both of these divine weapons. Legend had it that Athena accidentally killed Pallas, who had the bloodline of the sea god, when she was young. That was why she renamed the spear to Pallas Spear. However, the true creator of this divine weapon was the fire god Hephaestus. However, this spear was indeed fused with the powerful blood of a type of sea monster on Mars. Together with Athena's incomparable law of space, it could unleash shocking combat power. The deities saw that Athena was actually holding a spear in her right hand and a giant shield in her left, and their expressions turned solemn. They hadn't seen Athena treat a battle so seriously for a long time. What ability did Yang Cheng have to make Athena so afraid? However, there was something else in the deities' eyes that they couldn't explain. It was as if they felt that this battle had some other meaning. Yang Cheng could naturally feel the strength of his opponent, but at this moment, his state of mind was unusually calm. There was a slight smile at the corner of his mouth, but there was a hint of determination in his eyes. Yang Cheng let out a long sigh. "Looks like I have to make a choice." Just as Yang Cheng finished speaking and was about to use his full strength, Athena suddenly called out to him. "Wait a minute." Athena's voice became a little gentle, not as cold and emotionless as before. Yang Cheng's entire body seemed to be struck by lightning. He stiffened for a moment, his lips trembling slightly. He raised his head and stared at Athena, forcing a stiff smile. "What's wrong? You don't want to fight anymore?" Athena was silent for a moment, and after a slight hesitation, she said softly, "I've already said that if you use your full strength, it means that one of us will die. But are you really willing to let me die in front of you?" What do you mean, are you afraid?" Yang Chun tried his best to avoid her gaze. He wanted to tease her, but he couldn't restrain himself. He looked at Athena's face, which had always been shrouded in mist. It was hard to see her face clearly, but it gave people a feeling of absolute beauty. Unknowingly, Athena had already revealed her true appearance. Yang Qing only caught a glimpse of her from the corner of his eye, but he couldn't deceive himself. This was a face that he was incomparably familiar with, a face that was engraved in his heart. It wasn't just Yang Cheng. Even Luo Chinchio and the other cultivators in the distance were scared silly, unable to believe their eyes and speechless. Only the other deities present were all aware of this, and now that the truth was revealed, they all sighed slightly. Of course, there were also people like Hera and Hermes who found it rather interesting, and they were calm and unruffled, revealing strange smiles. Ha! 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 Aha! Yang Cheng's body trembled, and his shoulders shook. He lowered his head, smiling foolishly, laughing bitterly, crying and laughing, as if he was possessed, and he kept shaking his head. In the end, Yang Cheng's eyes were already uncontrollably red, and they were glistening with tears. Indistinct sobs came out from Yang Cheng's throat, and he tried to hold them back, but he couldn't. The hysterical despair, sorrow, and pain in his eyes caused Aphrodite, Artemis, and a few other main gods who were on good terms with him to cover their faces and cry when they saw this scene. There wasn't a trace of sorrow or joy on Athena's face. She just calmly and lightly walked through the air, arriving in front of Yang Cheng. At this moment, the Aegis shield and Paula spear had already been put away by her, because she knew that she had one. Just as she had expected, no matter how strong this man was, he would never lay a hand on her in the end. Athena quietly looked at Yang Cheng, who was covering his face and lowering his head. She gently opened her arms, wrapping them around Yang Cheng's waist, and leaned into Yang Cheng's embrace. I knew you wouldn't bear to hurt me, right? Smelling the familiar fragrance, Yang Cheng's throat was choked, and he suddenly pushed the woman away from his embrace. Then, Yang Cheng's right hand was like a vice, tightly gripping the woman's chin and violently raising her face towards him. Their gazes met. Yang Cheng's eyes were like blazing flames, while the woman's eyes were like a tranquil deep lake. Ice and fire intersected, clashing intensely in the silence. It was already impossible to describe Yang Cheng's current mood with simple, complex emotions. He already felt that he was crazy, but he was crazy to the point where he couldn't allow himself to continue being crazy. Athena didn't resist at all, allowing Yang Cheng to treat her so recklessly. Because of the powerful pressure and the high and respected status, her cold and beautiful face that could topple a city was exceptionally beautiful at this moment, making it hard for one to free themselves from her. Yang Cheng swallowed with difficulty. The hand that was gripping the woman's chin trembled, and he said hoarsely, "Lin, how could you treat me like this? Didn't I ask you to stay at home and look after the child? How could you do this?" On Lin Ruashi's cold face, there was finally a trace of emotion. Her long eyelashes trembled, and her moist eyes revealed a touch of crystal-clear color. The woman's lips lightly pursed, and she said softly, "I also persuaded you. I also begged you. I begged you. Don't come." Chapter 16:34. Yang Cheng had never wished that his life was an illusion, that he had never appeared in this world. Even in the cruelest times of his childhood, his personality had never made him give up on his desire to live. But now, Yang Cheng's eyes were emitting a faint aura of death. It was a kind of physical and mental exhaustion, a kind of collapse, a kind of defeat that corroded the roots of life. Illusion, falsehood, hypocrisy. His life seemed to have lost its direction and meaning the moment the woman revealed her true face. Yang Cheng let go of Athena and staggered 2 steps back, his legs a little weak. He stared at the woman in a daze, speechless. Not far away, Aphrodite, who was already in tears, asked Artemis, "Hades, he seems to have known?" Artemis nodded. "Probably. For what they said, Athena seems to have known that Hades knew about this. To think that we kept hiding it from Hades. Hera, Hermes, when he must have told him." Poseidon looked at the 2 main gods with a burning gaze. Hermes chuckled and spread his hands. "I did. I told him a long time ago. But at the time, I wasn't sure if he believed me. Why are you doing this?" Aphrodite said angrily. Hermes smiled evilly. "Isn't it obvious? Even if Hades knew, he would still follow Athena's script, because he doesn't want to believe the truth that I'm telling him. He doesn't want to believe that his wife has been toying with him all along. In other words, if he gave up on Athena after knowing all this, it could only mean that Athena's plan had failed. Don't you think it's interesting? Let him hold on to hope in his anxiety until the bubble of his fantasy is blown. Hermes, you've really gone too far. Apollo frowned. Huh, I've gone too far? Hermes sneered. I've only added a little drama to all of this. I've added to the inner thoughts of the main character of this play. You hypocrites, if you're really on Hades' side, why did you hide all this? Compared to you, I'm not going too far. Hearing this, the other gods could only remain silent. Indeed, all of this was destined. Unless Yang Chung never had any true feelings for Lin Roashi, he would have come to this point regardless of whether he knew about the relationship between Lin Roashi and Athena. Almost every step Athena took was for the sake of achieving today's goal. To make a person who had the ability to change the revival of the god race lose the possibility of going against the god race. Of course, if others knew about this, they would definitely think that Athena's actions were unnecessary. After all, with the strength of Athena and the other overgods, killing Yangchang would be a piece of cake. However, the gods did not think so. Everything that Athena had done was not groundless, because she was a woman who always saw more than others. There had to be some undisclosed information in her great prophecy spell, which was why she had to write this script and help Yang Chung reach this point. The gods had given Athena full trust, and the reality was, at least for now, that Athena did not let them down. Yang Chung no longer had the heart to continue fighting. The revival of the god race was just around the corner. After staring at Athena for a long time, Yang Cheng's expression became incomparably dull, as if he had lost his soul. Before I leave, I want to ask you something, Yang Chung said weakly. Athena seemed to have expected what Yang Chung would ask. She gently stretched out her hand, and a dark, translucent, crystal-like crown-shaped object appeared above her palm. It was strangely surrounded by a dark, deathly aura. You want to ask how I can always hide myself and not reveal any flaws? This is the answer. The previous Hades agreed to my request and followed my plan. He gave me the helmet of invisibility, and then according to my request, he let you obtain his divinity. This divine artifact can perfectly hide everything, unless I am willing. Otherwise, no one will be able to discover my existence, and you will not be able to see my true face, Athena said. When the gods saw the appearance of the helmet of invisibility, they sighed. For the revival of the god race, the previous Hades had indeed made a great sacrifice. Of course, Hades himself did not reject this plan. He was indeed tired of his long life. This was all within Athena's prophecy. Yang Cheng grinned bitterly. No wonder, whether it was when you stole the divinity in the Holy Grail or the divinity in the Sword of Thanatos. I cannot discover any flaws. What an amazing divine artifact. With a bitter smile, ignoring the gazes of the people around him, Yang Cheng slowly turned his back and left. The man's silhouette looked extremely lonely, as if he would be blown away by the cold wind at any time. Athena looked at all this with a slight frown, but she did not say anything. On the contrary, Aphrodite could not help but come forward to persuade. Athena, aren't you worried about Hades now? Athena closed her beautiful eyes and said quietly, he just needs to be alone for a while. He will not go against us anymore. That's not the problem. I mean, don't you care about him? Aphrodite said sadly. Him? Athena opened her eyes, which had regained its icy coldness. Everything I've done for the past 20,000 years has been for the revival of the god race, for today. This is me. Whether he accepts it or not, this is the unchangeable future. You? Aphrodite wanted to say something, but she was so angry that she could not speak. She directly waved her hand. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Athena seemed to be in no mood to say anything. Her eyes were fixed on a divinity that was being nurtured on the tree of earth. She was slightly absent-minded, and no one knew what she was thinking. The practitioners of Huaxia, who had seen all this, hurriedly left the scene when they saw Yang Cheng leave. The truth they had seen had shocked them so much that they did not dare to stay any longer, lest they die in vain. However, the practitioners of the illusion were also distressed. They did not expect that the devil would rise 10 times higher. Yang Chung, the hope of mankind, had long been in the palm of Athena's hand. No one in the world could make him kill his wife, the mother of his child. The fate of mankind seemed to be pinched into a dead end again. In the mysterious and pleasant independent space, there was a group of people watching everything that was happening. Outside of Meng Xiaoyao's small building, a mirror that was as clear as the surface of the water was like a giant monitor, displaying all the images and sounds in the sky above the North Pole clearly. Jane, who was sitting by the stone table, suddenly stood up from her seat when she saw that the real body of Athena was Lin Ruoshi. At this moment, when she saw the back of Yang Chung leaving, she was already sobbing and covering her face with her hands. Jane was very clear about the importance of Lin Ruoshi to Yang Chung. In this world, it was the most painful to be hurt by the person you loved the most. Jane seemed to feel the same, and her heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. She looked at Athena with eyes full of hatred. Meng Xiaoyao, Li Xiumei, Yang Yuansu, and his disciples, who had long known the inside story, and Yu Xuening, who had always been calm, seemed quite calm. This stupid boy. It's really hard to carve a rotten wood. Meng Xiaoyao sighed rather regretfully. Yu Xuening glanced at him playfully. Do you think everyone is like you, being rude to the person they love? Everyone is like you, cutting off the good thoughts, the evil thoughts, and the selfish thoughts? Meng Xiaoyao didn't care much about this ridicule and smiled slightly. I also expected it. It's not so easy to cross that hurdle. Back then, I also saw the books left by the ancient immortals in the Tongtian Tower, and then I was enlightened. Forget it. I'll go in person. I only hope that he doesn't ruin his great cultivation. Master, Yang Yuansu asked respectfully at this time. This time the fire god has damaged the formation I of the celestial demon formation. It won't be long before Zeus and a large number of ancient demons will return to the world. If Yang Chung is reluctant to make a move against the Lord, then should we first stabilize the situation, lest the ancient demons destroy the living beings? Meng Xiaoyao said with a blank expression. If Yang Chung still doesn't understand this time, it can only mean that humans can't escape this disaster. It is really the will of heaven. A little earlier, a little later, more or less dead, it doesn't make any difference. However, if you want to interfere, you can go ahead. The primordial fiendish devils aren't demonic beasts or vicious beasts. Most of them are just some weak, evil spirits of the netherworld. They can deal with mortals, but against cultivators, most of them aren't worth mentioning. Yang Yuansu and Li Xiumei were obviously slightly stunned. Although they knew that their master never cared much about human lives, they didn't expect that he didn't care to this extent. Of course, it was not that Meng Xiaoyao was abnormal, but in his world, there was no such thing as good or evil, and there was no such thing as good or evil. All living beings had a meaning of existence, and at most, they had a trace of kinship with humans and a trace of respect for the ancient immortals. Yu Xuening chuckled and said, Meng Xiaoyao, you scared your disciples. Hee hee. They have followed you for more than 2,000 years, but they still don't know you well enough. They can't stand it if you keep talking about things that go against the heavens in their eyes. Meng Xiaoyao chuckled and didn't want to explain more. His figure flashed and disappeared from this side of the world. Chapter 16:35. When Meng Xiaoyao left, the mirror image suspended in the air also closed, as if it had never appeared. Jane, who was silent for a moment, suddenly knelt down in front of Yu Xuening with red eyes. Yu Xuening squinted her eyes and asked with a playful smile, Little girl, what are you doing? Senior, I know, you can take me out. Please take me out. Jane gritted her teeth, unable to hide the hatred at the moment. Yu Xuening's slender fingers curled up a strand of black hair, looked at her for a while with a playful smile, and said, Can you really use your power to change the situation outside? I don't know. Jane choked with pain, but I have never seen him show that kind of despair. I can't imagine how hysterical and painful a person like him would be, to appear so weak. Yu Xuening sighed softly. I can take you out, but I won't. Why? Jane looked up incomprehensibly. Aren't you on Yang Cheng's side? Yu Xuening shook her head. I'm just more willing to believe that your man can face this fate by himself. Since I have acquiesced to Meng Xiaoyao's arrangement, then I will not suddenly go back on my words. This is my trust in myself and also in Yang Cheng. Looking at the deep light flashing in Yu Xiwening's eyes, Jane bit her red lips and bowed her head in silence. 7 days later, Zhonghai in Huaxia. Due to the geographical location of Zhonghai, there was abundant water vapor and there was no barrier. Under the erosion of the cold current, the temperature here had long dropped to -10 degrees during the day. At this time, it had almost become an empty city, except for some lonely old people who couldn't leave and were still trying to survive. Women, children, and young people almost all had dragged their families away from the city. On the once bustling street, there were no pedestrians passing by at noon. What was creepy was that from time to time, there were some frozen tramps, beggars, and the corpses of some civilians who died because of the riots. Some of these corpses had been gnawed and swallowed by tenacious rodents, causing many corpses to be mutilated and bloody. However, the blood had also coagulated, and the corpses did not rot much under the low temperature. If it was a normal summer day, it was very likely that a plague would have appeared due to the high temperature. Most of the dazzling shops in the central business district had been looted or smashed and destroyed. The army and the police had all abandoned this place, so naturally, no one would care about this. Rather than calling it an international metropolis, it would be more accurate to call it an old man who was about to freeze to death, a cold place that was slowly walking towards hell on earth. In a bar street in the West District, there was a small bar that had been smashed by hailstones and was in a dilapidated state. The messy and damaged tables and chairs, the overturned sofa, and the ground was littered with trash and empty wine bottles. A young man was lying strangely on a hard red sofa against the wall in such a moldy and stinky place. The man's clothes were dirty and full of stains, as if they had been soaked in various colors of alcohol. His hair was a mess, and his whole body reeked of alcohol. His face was purplish-red caused by a persistent hangover, and his pair of eyes were bloodshot. Under the sofa, there was a large pile of empty wine bottles. Some were finished, and some were thrown away halfway. These are the drinks found in the basement of the bar, which were left behind when people fled in a panic. The man's eyes were a little dull, and he just stared blankly at a corner not far away. Sometimes there seemed to be a smile at the corner of his mouth, and sometimes there was a painful burp in his eyes, like a mentally abnormal patient. This man was naturally Yang Cheng, who returned to Zhonghai after wandering aimlessly for 2 days. Somehow, Yang Cheng walked and unknowingly came to the small bar where he had once met Lin Ruoshi. As time passed, things remained the same, but people changed. In the past, perhaps the two of them were absurd and awkward, but there were sweet memories. But at this time, in the eyes of Yang Cheng, this place became the beginning of deception. Yang Cheng used the one leaf to hide his cultivation and aura because he didn't want to be disturbed by anyone, and he didn't want to see anyone. After rummaging through a large pile of alcohol, he lay on the sofa and drank bottle after bottle. He purposely let his nerves undergo the baptism of alcohol, perhaps to numb himself, or perhaps he wanted to get drunk and never wake up. There was even a glimmer of hope in Yang Cheng's mind, that if he was an ordinary person, it wouldn't be bad to drink to death like this. But in his mind, he thought of his family and daughter, and he felt a sense of powerlessness. He couldn't die, but it was worse than death. This place was quiet, so quiet that no one would notice the man in the dark corner, except for the roaring cold wind at midnight. Until noon on the 7th day, finally, a person with light steps stepped on the Yin tide and walked in. Yang Cheng was lying on the sofa, drunk as mud. There was a glimmer of light in his drowsy eyes, but it was fleeting, as if he didn't notice that someone was approaching him. The person walked to the sofa, stood for a while, and looked at Yang Cheng, who had no intention of getting up, and showed a regretful smile. Foolish child, your encounter with her is merely an illusion. However, the various things that happen on the way are not fleeting clouds. Why must you persist in going about things the wrong way? Yang Cheng twisted his body with difficulty, turned over, and faced his back to Meng Xiaoyao. Get lost. Yang Cheng spat out a word and didn't want to say anything else. Meng Xiaoyao couldn't help but smile. It seemed that although Yang Cheng looked drunk, he was actually still sober. Even if he didn't introduce himself, he could still guess who he was. In fact, it wasn't hard to guess who this person was, to be able to find Yang Cheng under the one leaf to hide his eyes. Meng Xiaoyao wasn't angry at Yang Cheng's rudeness. In fact, he didn't care about others' attitude toward him at all. Instead, he nodded approvingly, pulled a chair, and sat next to Yang Cheng, and said, "As the saying goes, there is no form, and the faith is pure, then the reality will be born. If you see the different forms, then you will see the Buddha. The mind is persistent, and the intention is to stay in the form. Get lost." Yang Cheng's tone became heavier, with a hint of anger, and he interrupted Meng Xiaoyao's words again. No form? Reality? If Buddhism could see through love and hatred in the world, then with his understanding, how could there be so many fetters and entanglements? Meng Xiaoyao opened his mouth, feeling a little ridiculous. This little guy was only a child in his 20s. No matter how much potential he had, he was still a child. When he talked to him, it was the same as when he talked to Yu Xuening. How could he listen? As for Yang Cheng asking him to get lost, he didn't take it to heart at all. After thinking for a moment, Meng Xiaoyao thought of something, nodded, and said again, "As far as humans know from exploring the ancient Earth, 65 million years ago, there was an asteroid of 1 trillion tons that hit the Earth. The speed of the asteroid exceeded 83,000 kilometers per hour, and its power was equivalent to detonating 30 million nuclear warheads at the same time. It could be said that the asteroid destroyed all life on Earth at that time, and every 10 million years, such a big impact may occur. In other words, every 10 million years, the Earth may be destroyed once. Small-scale celestial collisions could happen at any time. Just 50,000 years ago, when Huaxia was in the period of chaos and immortals and demons fighting for hegemony, a meteorite hit the desert of Arizona, which is now part of the United States. After the meteorite fell, 175 million tons of rocks and sand were thrown into the sky, leaving a huge pit that was 6 to 7 kilometers wide and nearly 200 meters deep. This huge pit was now codenamed Diablo Canyon. At that time, the meteorite was only 130 feet, comparable to today's small jets. When it fell, it caused a high temperature of 1,659 degrees Celsius, melting the rocks in the desert. The gravel produced by the impact reached a speed of 2 to 3 times that of a rifle bullet, spreading 3 to 6 miles around. At that speed, any surrounding people and animals could not be spared. Most of the indigenous people at that time were directly penetrated under inexplicable circumstances, and their bones were directly penetrated. At this point, Yang Cheng finally did not ask him to get lost. Slowly, Yang Cheng got up, turned his head, looked at Meng Xiaoyao with a smile on his face, and said gloomily, "What do you want to say?" Chapter 1636. Meng Xiaoyao said proudly, "You're finally interested in listening to what I have to say. If you didn't save me, I would have fought you to the death even if I couldn't defeat you," Yang Cheng said in a hoarse voice. He stared at Meng Xiaoyao like a ferocious wolf in the dark. "Oh, how do you know that I saved you?" "When Yin Buan combined with antimatter energy and fought with me in Yin Jing, you temporarily borrowed my body and used the Tai Ching heavenly thunder. Although your voice changed, I will never forget your tone. If I'm not mistaken, it was you who let the old man take Jane away. You're the master of the Li ancestor of the Yang family," Yang Cheng said. Meng Xiaoyao nodded approvingly. "You're still sober, which shows that you haven't been defeated yet. I can think of more than that." Yang Cheng sat up, kicked away a few empty bottles on the sofa, grabbed a bottle of red wine from the side, broke the bottle cap, and drank a few mouthfuls. The dry red wine flowed from his mouth into his chest, but Yang Cheng didn't care at all. "Hee, what else do you think of? Let's hear it." Meng Xiaoyao looked at Yang Cheng with great interest. Yang Cheng hiccuped and squinted his eyes as if he was a little drunk. "If I'm not mistaken, you should be the person that Yu Xuening mentioned. She said in the demon realm that I'm somewhat similar to an old friend, and when I used the endless resolve restoration scripture, she thought of that person. This means that it's the same person. A master who can make you Xuening pay attention to him is at least much stronger than me, and you can directly control my body and borrow my body to summon the Tai Ching heavenly thunder. I'm afraid that Yu Xuening can only be talking about you. And Yu Xuening is a legendary master who entered the demon realm 50,000 years ago. Your age is at least the same as Yu Xuening, or even longer. If it's a master with the same strength as Yu Xuening, or even a little stronger than her, he would at least reach the peak of Yu Qing. Furthermore, with your understanding of the endless resolve restoration scripture, it is very likely that you are the creator of this cultivation technique. If that was the case, then there was no way he would have been weaker than Zeus and Athena during the War of the Gods 20,000 years ago. There are two possibilities. The first is that you didn't participate in the battle, and the second is that you deliberately went easy on them. You could have wiped out the Protoss race, but you still left the 12 main gods alive. As Yang Cheng spoke, Meng Xiaoyao's eyes became brighter and brighter. There was a strange smile on his lips, and he nodded from time to time. Yang Cheng continued. In the illusory realm, I found a complete version of the endless resolve restoration scripture, but the name is different. If I'm not mistaken, this cultivation technique was purposely distributed among the various clans and sects for those who are fated to cultivate it. The creator of this cultivation technique clearly knew the power of this cultivation technique, but he didn't care if there would be people with evil intentions to cultivate it. It can only be said that the creator was very clear that the number of people who could successfully cultivate this cultivation technique was so small that it could be ignored. Therefore, he chose to spread the net, hoping that someone could successfully comprehend this cultivation technique by chance. Naturally, this resulted in this cultivation technique having different names among the various clans and sections. Since he did this, the most likely reason was that he wanted to find someone who could cultivate to achieve some desired goal. If my guess is correct, then the reason why you're sitting in front of me right now is because I'm the most successful person in cultivating this cultivation method. I'm also the person you want to choose. Clap, clap, clap. Meng Xiaoyao clapped his hand a few times and laughed. Not bad, you guessed most of it correctly. This cultivation technique is indeed based on my own understanding, and it took me 1,000 years of hard thinking to get it. However, Endless Resolve Restoration Scripture was indeed the first name I gave it. The biggest difference between this cultivation technique and the other cultivation techniques in the boundless world is that the other cultivation techniques draw a path for the cultivator to walk along the path and eventually reach the end to comprehend the great Tao. The Endless Resolve Restoration Scripture, on the other hand, directly allows the cultivator to see the end and then let the cultivator explore this path by himself. It can be said that it can either reach the sky in a single step or waste time. Over the past tens of thousands of years, there have occasionally been some talented talents who have been able to understand some of the true essence, but compared with you, they are still far behind. Your master, Song Tianxing, is just superficial and can't compare with you. Don't talk nonsense. What is the purpose of everything you've done and said just now? Yang Cheng asked directly without any joy after being praised. Meng Xiaoyao smiled and said, "Do you know how many meteorites and asteroids that are enough to cause the extinction of life on Earth have come close to Earth in the past 50,000 years? Yang Cheng frowned. Didn't you say every 10 million years? That's only in theory. Meng Xiaoyao said, it's like a mathematical probability. The probability can be very low, but it can't be ruled out that a large number of meteorites and asteroids will appear in a short period of time. Just from 50,000 years ago to the present, other than the meteorite that created the Diablo Canyon, there are at least 23 foreign celestial bodies that are larger than that meteorite. Each of them is enough to destroy the people on Earth. How is that possible? If that's the case, Earth should still be in the stage of the origin of life. Yang Cheng shook his head. Meng Xiaoyao suddenly pointed to himself and smiled mysteriously. The reason why those celestial bodies that are enough to destroy Earth did not hit Earth is because of me. You? Yang Cheng suddenly thought of something, but he still felt that it was hard to imagine. He laughed and said, Are you trying to tell me that you can destroy asteroids of trillions of tons? Make them deviate from their orbit and avoid hitting Earth? Are you kidding me? If that's the case, can you directly send the moon out of its orbit? However, Meng Xiaoyao nodded his head and said seriously, if I want to, I can. In fact, every ancient immortal who left Earth and went to the other side of the unknown starry sky could easily destroy a planet. Yang Cheng couldn't see his expression at this time, but he didn't need to think to know that he was completely dumbfounded. Meng Xiaoyao didn't seem to be joking with him. The other side of the starry sky? Destroy the planet? Could it be that the ancient immortals didn't go to the immortal world, but went to outer space? Seeing Yang Cheng's dumbfounded expression, Meng Xiaoyao realized that he had jumped a little too fast. He reached out his hand to signal Yang Cheng to calm down and listen to him slowly. As Meng Xiaoyao's thoughts slowly sorted out, an unprecedentedly clear and grand world appeared in front of Yang Cheng's eyes. Meng Xiaoyao's story started from his own background. About 56,000 years ago, Meng Xiaoyao was an inconspicuous bastard son of the Meng family, the earliest devil cultivator family. In the Meng family, Meng Xiaoyao's cultivation had always been lukewarm, and he was much inferior to some of his other brothers. However, at that time, the people of the Meng family didn't know that this little guy wasn't really bad at comprehension, but because his comprehension far exceeded everyone at that time. He walked a completely different path of cultivation, which was starting from the results. Meng Xiaoyao, who was ostracized in the family, pretended to be dead in battle and directly went into seclusion to cultivate, and was gradually forgotten by people. Until more than 50,000 years ago, when a legendary expert of the demon clan, Qing Xiu clan, Yu Xuening appeared, Meng Xiaoyao had already reached the peak of the Jade Clear Realm. He had even touched the threshold of the ancient immortals, a more magnificent and mysterious door to the unknown starry sky. Chapter 1637. Meng Xiaoyao, who came out of seclusion, could go to any place on Earth freely. He could even go to the 12 heavenly demon formation created by the ancient immortals, the mysterious demon realm, and the eye of the sky demon that would not open by itself at that time. Meng Xiaoyao realized that the celestial demon formation, the demon realm, and the eye of the sky demon were three worlds that were connected to each other. The ancient immortals had used their vast imagination and unfathomable power to create this peerless masterpiece. Although there were only a few powerful ancient demons imprisoned by the formation, and most of them were ghosts with strong yin qi, they would still bring a huge burden to the illusion. Therefore, the ancient immortals used the unique space in the space crack, the eye of the sky demon, to connect with the formation and absorb the yin qi in the formation. Coincidentally, the yin qi could be condensed into the purple and green heavenly thunder through the divine weapon Kuei-drum. It was a kind of yin thunder that was injected into the top of the Tower of Babel to suppress the demons that wanted to break through the Tower of Babel. The reason why the ancient immortals designed all of this was because they had decided to leave Earth at that time. Their power was enough to travel freely in the universe and explore more mysterious worlds. Earth was indeed their home for hundreds of thousands of years, but they also had their own goals. A wider world was in front of them, and they could not stay forever. Therefore, for the sake of mankind's descendants and for the sake of Earth, the ancient immortals decided to use this method to control demons and monsters. Before they left, they killed and sealed chaos, Tao Wu, and other wild and unruly beasts and monsters. After this series of things was completed, the ancient immortals recorded all of these at the top of the Tower of Babel. Although the demon realm seemed to imprison the demon cultivators, in fact, it was only used by the ancient immortals to separate humans and demons to avoid endless bloodshed. Among the ancient immortals, there were humans and demons. Therefore, they did not know who would be in charge of everything on Earth after they left. Therefore, at the top of the Tower of Babel, in addition to recording this history, they also left some instructions for future generations. The general meaning was that no matter who it was, the righteous cultivators outside or the demon cultivators in the demon realm, if they could pass the 99 levels of purple and green heavenly thunder and reach the top of the tower, it meant that they were strong enough and not some low-level cultivators. In fact, Yang Cheng was a special case that was a little abnormal. Firstly, Yang Cheng's body had been modified in various ways and was ridiculously strong. Secondly, he had the Chaos Cauldron in hand. According to the ancient immortals' deduction, those who could reach the top of the tower with their own strength were basically half of ancient immortals, just like Yu Shiwening. Those who reached the top of the pagoda could make a choice. The first choice was to take away the Kuei Nyo drum and release the demons in the 10,000 demon realm, leaving the various races to fend for themselves. The second choice was to leave the Kuei Nyo drum and not make a decision, continuing to maintain the separation between the human race and the demons. This was equivalent to giving the righteous demon and demon cultivators the same chance. If the demon and demon cultivators really had enough masters to crush the human race, it was also the fate of the human race. But at the same time, if the demon and demon cultivators did not live up to expectations, they could only blame others. Meng Xiaoyao entered the demon realm through the locked demon tower with curiosity. At that time, the Tower of Babel did not open once every 60 years, but it was open all the time. After Meng Xiaoyao wandered in the demon realm for some time, he directly rushed from the lower level of the Tower of Babel to the top. At that time, he could easily resist the purple and green heavenly thunder. When he found the books left by the ancient immortals, he knew that he was the first person to discover this secret. At that time, no one knew where the ancient immortals went, and it had always been a mystery. And through the books left by the immortals, he knew that the earth had been attacked by foreign celestial bodies for the past hundreds of thousands of years. It had always been the ancient immortals who directly destroyed some particularly threatening celestial bodies or knocked them out of their orbit. For them, the earth was like their birth mother, so they naturally had special feelings for it. The ancient immortals hoped that the future generations could continue to protect the earth. After all, they had done a lot for this planet, and it was time to leave. Anyone who had the opportunity to see these messages basically meant that they had the ability to do it. Moreover, if their own strength was not enough, they could also borrow the power of the one-leg bull drum. After all, the ancient immortals were ancient immortals. Even the words left behind contained unparalleled great Tao. After reading all the words, Meng Xiaoyao immediately had a higher level of understanding. This was also equivalent to bearing the kindness of the immortals and sowing a karma. Meng Xiaoyao knew that if he stayed out of it and pretended not to know the immortals' instructions, he was afraid that he would not be able to live in peace for the rest of his life. Therefore, he silently accepted this entrustment to protect the earth. Even if he had the ability to leave the earth long ago, he would stay on the earth for more than 50,000 years. However, Meng Xiaoyao also had his own plans. He could not stay on the earth all the time. He had to leave sooner or later and follow the footsteps of the ancient immortals to the vast starry sky. He also needed to find a person who could inherit this mission and help him in this mission. When he passed through the door from the top of the Tongtian Tower and saw the Eye of the Sky Demon, he had a plan. Meng Xiaoyao took the key to the Eye of the Sky Demon, which was the black ball, and then left the demon realm from the Tongtian Tower. At that time, the war between the righteous and the demons was in full swing. With Meng Xiaoyao's strength, he quietly sneaked into the Meng family and became a guest elder. He called himself Xiaoyao, but he did not show his true cultivation base. It was at that time that he and Yu Shiwening were both at the top of the pyramid, and there was a trace of fetters. Unfortunately, he had a mission, and it was impossible for him to be on Yu Shiwening's side. Therefore, even if the beauty had feelings for him, Meng Xiaoyao also seemed ruthless. Although Yu Shiwening was intelligent and could guess a lot of things that others did not know, she also felt extremely resentful. She simply did not want to be a stumbling block in front of Meng Xiaoyao and directly entered the demon realm by herself. Meng Xiaoyao did not stop Yu Shiwening. He had more important things to do. In several key battles, he attracted a large number of enemies, and also a large number of the strongest masters at that time. The giants of the forces fought at the location of the Eye of the Sky Demon. At that time, it could be said that the sky was dark and the earth was dark. Countless demons and cultivators gathered there. Meng Xiaoyao pretended to self-destruct after being seriously injured, but in fact, they were all blown to pieces. Their souls fell into the Eye of the Sky Demon, forming countless demon spirits later. Under Meng Xiaoyao's transformation, the Eye of the Sky Demon became a special world that opened once every 100 years. And because he took away the key to the Sky Demon's Eye of the Tongtian Tower, the door was closed, causing the evil Yin Qi to be unable to smoothly and continuously converge into the Kuan Yodrome. As a result, the demon realm at that time also became a world that only opened once every 60 years. Meng Xiaoyao left the Black Ball and a will in the Meng family, which could be regarded as fate. After all, he was from a Meng family, and it was considered a repayment to the Meng family. He gave the Black Ball to the Black Ball, but only said that this thing had a chance to revive the devil cultivation and did not specify its use. This was also because Meng Xiaoyao hoped to let fate decide everything. If one day the demon cultivators and devil cultivators conquered the illusion, there would naturally be a chance to use this black ball, just like what happened to Yang Cheng at that time. If the devil cultivators and devil cultivators did not win against the righteous cultivators, it was also fate, and it could not be forced. After almost 30,000 years, Meng Xiaoyao had been fulfilling the ancient immortal's entrustment. While silently watching the future generations, he also helped the earth to avoid those celestial bodies that collided with it from afar. However, Meng Xiaoyao found that his strength was getting stronger and stronger, and his realm was getting higher and higher, but the younger generation was really getting worse. The demon cultivators and devil cultivators were content in a corner, and in the untainted land, they did not dare to show their heads. The righteous cultivators in the illusion doing all kinds of tricks and messy things. Occasionally, some good seedlings would be ruined in vain. He began to be confused. In the end, with such a group of descendants, was it still necessary for him to stay on the earth? In other words, was it really right to let human beings be the dominant race on the earth? Was it really good to let human beings avoid the demon cultivators and devil cultivators? He had long been detached from the framework of ordinary human beings, righteous cultivators, devil cultivators, and so on. He was detached from these things, so he did not have the idea of leaning towards any side. Just when he could not find the answer and fell into confusion, the god race came. Chapter 1638. Meng Xiaoyao had long known of the arrival of this race. Although he had never been to Mars, he knew their origins from his understanding of the outer space of Earth. In the face of this foreign race, Meng Xiaoyao did not reject or worry. Instead, his eyes lit up. In terms of innate strength and physique, the Protoss had a huge advantage. They were born with godhood and could control the laws of space with amazing power. It could be said to be the race's talent. Moreover, the Protoss had the ability to reincarnate. The main gods could reincarnate infinitely, and their lifespan was far longer than humans. Although the strength of the Protoss was far inferior to the ancient immortals, they could rely on godhood to spend a long time in the universe and travel short distances from Mars to Earth. It was almost impossible for human cultivators to survive in the universe unless they had reached the Jade Pure realm or above. However, the Protoss could. What touched Meng Xiaoyao the most was that the Protoss were united around the 12 main gods and were loyal to the same mother goddess, Gaia. There was no real internal strife. At most, the main gods disliked each other. Compared to the other races on Earth, the Protoss were much more advanced in terms of the civilization of their country and society. For example, humans were still in the stage of primitive tribes and disputes between various races. However, the Protoss were already a unified parliamentary country. When the Protoss began to fight with the human cultivators, Meng Xiaoyao initially watched from the sidelines and did not help either side. Even if Meng Xiaoyao's strength could easily kill all the Protoss, including Zeus and Athena, he had no reason to do so. This was because Meng Xiaoyao had long broken away from the simple concept of Earth. In his opinion, whether it was the Protoss or the human race, they existed in the universe and had the right to survive, not the so-called aliens and Earthlings. Meng Xiaoyao had a thought that he had never had before. If the Earth was ruled by the Protoss, did that mean that his mission was over? The Protoss had the ability to protect Earth and would not perish because of the celestial impact. At the same time, they were more advanced than humans and would not waste the resources of Earth and engage in unnecessary battles. The ancient immortals had even arranged a celestial demon formation for the gloomy and evil demons and ghosts as their resting places. They could not bear to kill them all, not to mention the celestial race, a race that had to survive and not purely commit evil. Meng Xiaoyao felt that he could do so without violating the will of the ancient immortals to protect Earth. However, this was not a simple decision after all. He still needed to observe more. In the following years, Meng Xiaoyao gradually discovered that the Protoss could not reproduce smoothly on Earth. It seemed that the success rate of reproduction through the mating of Protoss men and women was almost zero. This made Meng Xiaoyao feel strange. If that was the case, how could there be so many ordinary Protoss? Was it because some of the elements on Mars and Earth were different? After various investigations, Meng Xiaoyao finally found out that on Mars, the main reproduction method of the Protoss was to rely on the tree of Earth to directly give birth to the divine spark and form the Protoss. One of them, Astrius, had secretly hidden the heart of Gaia, which had grown into the tree of Earth. Meng Xiaoyao secretly studied it and found a reason. The tree of Earth could indeed nurture the powerful Protoss, but it came at a huge price. It would consume the planet's energy rapidly, which would shorten the lifespan of the planet. This made Meng Xiaoyao hesitate. If the Earth was handed over to the Protoss to rule, the Protoss would sooner or later find the heart of Gaia and summon the tree of Earth in order to expand their population. At that time, wouldn't it be equivalent to watching the rapid depletion of the Earth? Meng Xiaoyao found that he could not make a choice whether to let the Protoss take charge of the Earth or continue to protect the original life and civilization on this planet. He wanted to go to the vast, starry sky as soon as possible like the ancient immortals, but he could not leave the Earth with peace of mind. Therefore, Meng Xiaoyao decided to control the situation first, and then consider other countermeasures. He incarnated as a mysterious hidden master, revealed his cultivation to the Jade Pure realm, and became one of the strongest human cultivators at that time. After pretending to mediate with Zeus and Athena a few times, he locked Zeus in the celestial demon formation during a pursuit battle and deliberately let Athena escape. Zeus's seal suddenly made the Protoss' original winning position become even, as if everything was reasonable. Finally, there was the Treaty of Gods that coexisted with cultivator Huaxia. As they talked from noon to late at night. As Yang Cheng listened to Meng Xiaoyao slowly narrate the distant history, he could not help but show a trace of a self-deprecating smile at this time. Yang Cheng shook his head and sighed. Meng Xiaoyao narrowed his eyes. Kid, do you think that I've thought so much and done so much as a waste of time? Isn't it? Whether it's humans or the Protoss, they're just ants in your eyes. The two sides fight endlessly, but in the end, you're actually watching the show from the side. Isn't this funny? In fact, no matter what the decision is, in the end, you have the final say, said Yang Cheng. Meng Xiaoyao had expected this. He asked with a smile, is that so? If you really think so, why can't you do it when you can obviously defeat Athena? Since you can't bear to kill her, why are you drowning your sorrows here alone? Aren't you also in control of the power to decide everything? But are you still depressed here? Compared to you, what I've done is a waste of effort in your eyes. Isn't it much better than your choice? At the mention of the three words, Athena, Yang Cheng's pupils involuntarily shrank. He clenched his fists tightly, and his emotions suddenly became a little unstable. After taking a deep breath, Yang Cheng finally calmed down. Suddenly, he was speechless because of Meng Xiaoyao's rebuttal. Yes, even if he really had the ability to change everything. Could he really make a decision so easily? My fetters to this planet, and all the creatures here are like your fetters to Athena. Although they're different, there are also similarities. You can't make a decision just for a woman. How can I make a decision so easily for all the creatures in this boundless universe? Meng Xiaoyao said with emotion. This time, Yang Cheng did not laugh at him. He silently understood Meng Xiaoyao's feelings. However, it was precisely because he knew Meng Xiaoyao's intentions that he was a little angry. Yang Cheng sneered, looked up at him, and said, "You've done so much and waited for 20,000 years. Is it because you can't make a decision yourself? So you want me to decide who should be in charge of the earth?" Meng Xiaoyao did not deny it. He nodded his head and said seriously, "Yes, you can understand it that way. However, this was not caused by me, but by your fate. Just like what Athena's great prophecy technique showed, you are the variable that will affect the final outcome." Athena's great prophecy technique. What is it? Can't she know your true identity and strength? Moreover, you should have known everything that Athena had done, but you deliberately let her do it, right? Yang Cheng asked while gritting his teeth. Meng Xiaoyao stretched out his hand to signal Yang Cheng to calm down. "Kid, don't be angry. I know what you want to know. Listen to me slowly. I came to you to solve the confusion in your heart. The so-called great prophecy technique, perhaps only Athena can really understand what it is. However, I can also peek in her godhood and pry into it. It can be said that it is a unique talent of her divinity. She can rely on her mental strength to predict what will happen in the future. It could be the next second, the next moment, the next year, or even longer. It could be hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of years later. Only she can control the specific method of prophecy. No one can understand it, just like her Tao. However, the more influential the people and places in her prophecies are to space, the more her mental strength will be consumed. After all, the great prophecy technique is also derived from the law of space. In other words, if Athena wants to prophesy the life of an ordinary person, she will only need a drop in her mental strength. However, it is almost impossible for her to prophesy my future. This is because I have long surpassed the law of space that she knows, and we are not in the same dimension. I have a great influence on the space that I am in. Even if she prophesies you, Yang Cheng, I am afraid that it will be very difficult for her, because the current you is already very different from the past. I am afraid that her prophecy about you is limited to before you reach the Shangqing realm, which is more accurate. If you fight with her now, she will not waste her mental strength on using the great prophecy technique on you. She will only fight you fair and square. In other words, Athena does not know your real background. Yang Cheng asked. The strange thing was that Meng Xiaoyao shook his head. No, although she couldn't use the great prophecy spell to deduce my true identity and strength, she should have known about my strength from other clues. She also understood that I would acquiesce to what she did today. It was just that she didn't need to mention me to anyone, just like when she found the heart of Gaia, because it was specially hidden. Although she could not find the specific location of the heart of Gaia, she could infer its location from other information. With her wisdom, this is not a difficult thing to do. At most, it will take a little more time. Chapter 1639. Yang Cheng's eyes showed some confusion and murmured, "If the current me is beyond the level of her accurate prophecy, is she so sure that her prophecy is still accurate?" Meng Xiaoyao smiled and said, "In fact, her great prophecy spell was no longer absolutely accurate since many years ago." "What do you mean?" Yang Cheng frowned in confusion. Meng Xiaoyao said lightly, but didn't hear it wrong. Athena's great prophecy spell is not absolutely accurate. To break her great prophecy spell, in addition to going beyond the scope of her prophecy, there is another most direct way. After a pause, Meng Xiaoyao saw that Yang Cheng was thinking hard and said, "That is, let Athena herself become the variable of the prophecy itself." Yang Cheng was stunned and vaguely understood something. Athena is the first, and can even be said to be the only one who completely knows everything that she prophesied. In other words, if she wants to change the future, She only needs to change some of her original behaviors and change history, and the future will change accordingly. Yang Qing asked, "Then you said that her prophecy was inaccurate a few years ago because she did something that she shouldn't have done?" "Yes, it's a past that is extremely important to you," Meng Xiaoyao said with a smile. "Athena didn't expect that she would give birth to a child for you and reincarnate so early." "What?" Yang Cheng couldn't sit still anymore. He suddenly stood up and shouted with red eyes, "Lon Lon, you mean 17, she?" Meng Xiaoyao looked as if it was a matter of course. He knocked his legs and said, "Shouldn't you have thought of it long ago? Didn't she have some strange situations when she was around you? 17 is the human woman who reincarnated in Athena's previous life. She is also the most important part of her prophecy." In Yang Cheng's mind, every time the chubby little girl insisted on calling Lin Ruoshi her mother, and the words that Lin Ruoshi blurted out to 17. Yes, he had indeed guessed it, but when he heard it with his own ears, he still felt as if he was struck by lightning, and he was rooted to the spot. I don't know what Athena's original prophecy was, but I've been observing her every move. It's obvious that after she reincarnated into 17, she did try to get close to you. But she didn't expect that before the time she planned to awaken, 17 had already fallen in love with you and was pregnant with your child. Human emotions transcended space and time. They were not affected by any spatial laws. Love was a mysterious emotion that even the gods couldn't figure out and understand its essence. It was also a power that humans possessed that was not inferior to the god race between humans and the Protoss. Athena could predict almost everything, but she couldn't predict the love she faced because the more unforgettable the love was, the more illogical and unreasonable it was. When she awakened, she was already 17, pregnant with a child, and fell into the sea at the end of her tether. I'm afraid that even she herself didn't understand that the choice she made was to hide herself with an invisible helmet, gave birth to a child, and entrusted the child to Song Tianxing. It was at that time that she changed history herself. The true love that shouldn't have existed, the flesh and blood between her and you that shouldn't have existed, made her have to make other choices to make up for the original prophecy. Wait! Yang Cheng interrupted Meng Xiaoyao's words abruptly and said with a somewhat excited expression, "If everything you said is true, does that mean that Ruoshi, she wasn't Athena originally? 17, when 17 and I fell in love, she wasn't Athena either." Meng Xiaoyao smiled, but he didn't deny it and nodded. Yang Cheng gladly showed a relieved smile and sat down silently. "Thank you for telling me this. Please continue. I want to know everything." At this moment, Yang Cheng had a kind of joy of rebirth. The emotions that were entangled in the cold and deep quagmire finally had a trace of warmth. Whether it was Lin Ruoshi or 17, these two women were real, not an illusion created by Athena. Even there was no hatred for Athena, because her decision allowed Lon Lon to be born into this world. No matter what the reason was, Yang Chen couldn't imagine how he would collapse if Athena didn't decide to give birth to a child. Meng Xiaoyao followed and said, "You can think of it this way. What Athena did after that was equivalent to the deployment to reverse the final result of the prophecy, and it was not really a destined future. Although reincarnation consumed a lot of spiritual power, 17's body couldn't take it anymore. Even if she returned to your side, it would be too late to reverse the prophecy. Athena had no choice but to use the great prophecy spell to find the key person to reverse the situation. After giving up 17's body, Lin Ruoshi reincarnated into Athena's body. She realized that Lin Ruoshi's existence was coincidentally a key person who could lead the future prophecy back on track. It could be said to be the golden key to make up for her mistake. The difficulty of reincarnating into an adult's body and reincarnating into a child's body was different. Needless to say, under the situation where her spiritual power was weak, the reincarnation interval was only about 20 years. Even though she had the invisibility helmet and could not be detected by anyone, she couldn't completely awaken immediately. She could only quietly recover her spiritual power while performing some key control on Lin Ruoshi. When Lin Ruashi first came to this bar, it was Athena who interfered with her thoughts so that both of you could meet and what happened after that. However, almost everything that happened after that was experienced by Lin Ruashi with you. Firstly, Athena wouldn't take the risk of you discovering her existence too early. Secondly, she didn't want to waste too much spiritual power to control Lin Ruashi for a long time. Therefore, apart from occasionally seizing the divinity and communicating with Yan Buin and the other chess pieces, Athena didn't really control Lin Ruashi. Of course, most of the things that happened between you and Lin Ruashi were within the scope of Athena's prophecy. It was the things that happened between you and Lin Ruashi that helped her to lead the changed future back to its original track. However, this time, she didn't choose to hibernate like she did in 17's body. Instead, she maintained the hidden state of awakening to prevent any more mistakes. However, due to the lack of time, the interval between her reincarnations was too short, and she didn't choose to hibernate. In her soul, 17's consciousness was still lingering. Therefore, your child was sensitive enough to think that Lin Ruashi was her biological mother. In a sense, Lin Ruashi's soul did fuse with part of 17's soul imprint. Yang Cheng's heart pounded heavily because he realized something that he didn't dare to think about before. Yang Cheng gulped and said with difficulty, "You mean, Athena? Oh no, Ruashi." Although her soul is controlled by Athena, she and 17 haven't disappeared? Meng Xiaoyao nodded. That's right. In fact, when Lin Ruashi could still control herself, she probably realized something was wrong. However, she couldn't resist Athena's soul after all. Even if she knew that there was another person in the depths of her soul, she couldn't really say it under Athena's surveillance. With the recovery of Gaia's heart and the recovery of the earth tree, God's spiritual energy in the Godhead, Athena could now completely suppress Lin Ruashi's and 17 souls. With sufficient spiritual energy, she could always be in control. As far as I know, the Lord God wouldn't lose the memories of each reincarnation, but he would lose the soul imprint of the previous life, which was the original consciousness of the previous body's owner. However, Athena's forced reincarnation this time was not within her original expectations. She awakened too early, so she couldn't erase the original owner's soul imprint in time. As a result, Lin Ruashi and 17's imprints remained in her soul, but their consciousness was suppressed. This is why you often find that Lin Ruashi has 17's shadow. No matter what she says, what she does, and every move she makes, there will be times when they overlap. Of course, Yang Cheng had a deep understanding of this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have felt that Lin Ruashi was so similar to that figure. A glimmer of hope ignited in his eyes. He said, "In other words, if I can erase Athena's soul imprint, whether it's Ruashi or 17, they can both recover." "You're too naive." Meng Xiaoyao smiled and shook his head. "Do you think it's so easy?" Athena had expected that you would think of this, so in her subsequent plans, she didn't deliberately erase the souls of Lin Ruashi and 17. She chose to merge with Lin Ruashi and 17. In other words, unless Athena voluntarily scattered her soul and chose death, any harm you do to Athena will be harming Lin Ruashi and 17. Athena was willing to merge the souls of 2 human women with her, just for today, so that you can't do anything to her, so that you can't stop her plan. Like a bull from the blue, Yang Chun was stunned on the spot with an ashen face. All the beautiful hopes from before were instantly shattered again. Chapter 1640. Yang Chun couldn't help but smile bitterly in despair. He sat down on the sofa, as if all his strength had been drained. In the end, he was back to square one. He couldn't even do anything to Athena, who occupied Lin Ruashi's body. Now that he knew that Athena was equivalent to Lin Ruashi and 17, it was even more impossible for him to hurt her. Fortunately, Lin Ruashi and 17, the 2 women who meant a lot to him, were living in another way. But the sad thing was that he couldn't even save any of them. The more Yang Cheng thought about it, the crazier he became. In the end, he began to slap his head with both hands, like a beast being whipped. He let out a low roar from his throat. With his fingers in his hair, Hot tears overflowed from Yang Cheng's eyes. What was the use of having a strong cultivation? In the end, he couldn't even save his own child's mother, his beloved wife. Meng Xiaoyao quietly watched Yang Cheng vent and shed tears. He didn't reveal any special emotions. He just smiled faintly and waited for Yang Cheng to calm down. After a few minutes, Yang Cheng seemed to have calmed down. He raised his head and stared at Meng Xiaoyao with red eyes, revealing a chill. At this point, Yang Chun had already sorted out all the threads of thought. To put it bluntly, the game of 20,000 years was nothing more than a gamble between Meng Xiaoyao and Athena. Meng Xiaoyao needed to find an inheritor to replace him. He also needed an opportunity to decide whether the human clan or the Protoss clan would rule the earth. Athena also knew that the mysterious person who purposely released her and only sealed Zeus was not someone she could resist. However, it was obvious that Meng Xiaoyao had intentionally allowed Athena to set up a trap. Athena's great prophecy technique meant that Athena would find a way to revive the Protoss clan sooner or later. He only needed to wait for Athena to choose a suitable candidate for him. The two of them were using each other, but Athena could only perform the great prophecy spell according to Meng Xiaoyao's intentions. Meng Xiaoyao was the main reason for all of this. It was his choice that forced Athena to make arrangements in the direction of choosing an inheritor for him. Yang Cheng, who had the most outstanding understanding of the endless resolve restoration scripture, could be said to be the candidate that Meng Xiaoyao was quite satisfied with. This was the key to the gamble between the two of them, and the most important variable in this catastrophe. Although Meng Xiaoyao had already looked down on who would win between the humans and the gods, he couldn't bear to see Yang Chun, a good seedling, lose to Athena for emotional reasons. This was the opposite of what he wanted to do when he cut off his selfish thoughts and abandoned Yu Shiwening 50,000 years ago. From a certain perspective, this was also a battle between Meng Xiaoyao and Yu Shiwening. Meng Xiaoyao hoped to confirm that his choice 50,000 years ago was correct and let Yu Shiwening wake up as soon as possible. Athena, on the other hand, believed that Yang Cheng loved the two human women in her soul and did not care about the safety of the human race. Even if he knew that she had deceived and used him, he would not kill her. One was gambling on giving up, and the other was gambling on reluctance. So, since I met Ruashi, everything that happened was deliberately arranged by Athena to turn her prophecy back to the original track. Yang Cheng asked in a deep voice. Meng Xiaoyao nodded and said, "As I said, she needs to make up for her miscalculation. If 17 did not die, then you may continue to kill madly all over the world. In that case, sooner or later, you will challenge the whole world, causing panic in all countries, and eventually become the public enemy of humanity. After all, I am not her. I can only see the general picture, but it is not far from the truth. That is also the earliest blueprint of Athena's great prophecy spell. In that case, you will definitely improve your cultivation quickly because of continuous fighting. However, no one expected that 17 would choose to leave with your child because of her true love for you. I hope you can repent and don't want to die in the end." After you returned to Huaxia, you became less sharp and began to fade into the crowd. This was different from Athena's original expectations. It was impossible for you to become a Buddha immediately, and it was impossible for you to kill and become a demon. You would only waste your life. Therefore, after Athena arranged for Lan Lan, she did not care to restore her spiritual power and reincarnated into Lin Ruashi. After meeting you, she used her relatively weak spiritual power to use the short-term Great Prophecy spell to arrange a road of sharpening for you. At first, it was Yin Buin, the chess piece, who caused the crisis of antimatter energy through the God Stone. In the process of fighting for the God Stone, many people found trouble with you. After Yin Buin died, it was when Tao's turn to go through another more difficult battle. This move was brilliant. It should be said that Athena chose Wen Tao very well. He was indeed a more difficult opponent than Yin Buin, and he fought with you all the way to the bottom of the Tower of Babel. Along the way, because Athena's great prophecy spell lost its accuracy, she once stripped the divinity from various artifacts and poured it into your clone body. The fake gods created were wasted by Yanbuan. However, because Athena found a way to make up for it with the elements of the earth itself, she did not continue the project. Every sentence sounded like thunder in Yang Cheng's ears. Although he was mentally prepared, he did not expect Athena to secretly play so many chess pieces. Along the way, he was more scared than hurt. There was even one time when Black Robe saved him in Australia. It was probably also Athena's instructions. Meng Xiaoyao thought of something again. He clapped his hands and said with a smile, "There's another interesting thing that I've been observing silently from the side. Among the Protoss, the three main gods, Hera, Hephaestus, and Hermes, are all hostile towards Athena. Hera cultivated a kind of Hua, Xia's divination spell, called Divination Spell. Although it was not as good as Athena's great prophecy spell, it was still very magical and could predict many things in the future. Because the three main gods were either reincarnated cultivators or blood kindred with extremely long lifespans, they hoped to break Athena's plan. When Athena entered the interval of reincarnation, they would find Gaia's heart and revive the gods. Then, they would get rid of the unawakened Athena and completely change the power structure of the main gods. It was a pity that their wishful thinking had failed time and time again. That time, when Lin Ruashi was in danger, they originally thought that Athena would have no choice but to reveal her strength to protect this body. In this way, once you arrived at the scene, Athena's plan would fall apart. However, Athena still endured until the end. At that time, she did not make a move to save Lin Ruashi, and you just happened to arrive in time. Also, do you remember when you wanted to kill Yang Lai, but Hermes stopped you? His purpose was also to change Athena's script. Originally, if you killed Yang Lai, you would most likely not return to the Yang family. Moreover, you would completely stand on the opposite side of Huaxia and even start a war with the people in the illusion instead of becoming a member of the four major families. However, Athena still did not interfere. Instead, through a series of twists and turns, she let the script go in another way and let Yang Lai have another way to die. In general, in order to restore the future that she destroyed by the great prophecy technique, Athena spent a lot of effort to set things right. But inevitably, there were still some omissions. However, I have to admire her for finally overcoming all kinds of problems and allowing you to reach this level of cultivation in just a few years. Finally, you can enter my eyes and I can give you the power to make a decision." Yang Cheng sneered sarcastically and said, "This power to make a decision. I don't want it. You don't dare to make a decision yourself, so you want me to take the blame. What a good plan." Meng Xiaoyao smiled lightly and stood up. He reached out and patted Yang Cheng's shoulder calmly. "Boy, you're wrong. I made a decision as early as 20,000 years ago. My decision is not to take sides. If you choose to protect Athena and are unwilling to make a move, then I won't force you. I'm here today to tell you the truth that should be told to you. The rest is your own business and the fate of mankind." After saying that, Meng Xiaoyao did not say anything more. He turned around and disappeared without a trace like a phantom. Even with Yang Chen's current level of cultivation, he still couldn't figure out how he managed to leave. In the dead silence of the bar again, Yang Cheng lay down on the sofa and stared blankly at the hanging chandelier. His eyes were filled with confusion. Chapter 1641. Within the illusion realm, above profound Heaven Island, at the eye of the great fiend god formation, almost half a month had passed. Under the interference of the reverse wheel, the formation's speed had almost halved. The golden light was no longer as dazzling as before. In the beginning, there was a faint aura of darkness seeping out. Now, there was a large amount of dark, evil energy gathering at the eye of the formation. In the sky, the 9 overgods were gathered there, silently staring at the eye of the formation as if waiting for something. Just a little bit more, but the formation will soon be unable to maintain the seal, Hephaestus said confidently. "You seem very pleased with yourself. Don't you think you've wasted too much time?" Ares said impatiently. Hephaestus frowned at the god of war. There's no use explaining to a brute like you who only knows how to fight and kill. There's no way you can understand the power of the great fiend god formation. Ares glared and was about to fly into a rage when he was stopped by a cold glare from Athena. Athena glanced at the god of fire and the god of war, telling them not to cause trouble. She then reached out with her jade arm and suddenly made a grabbing motion in the air. A black shadow flashed in the air. Black Robe struggled, but as if he was grabbed by an invisible hand, Athena pulled him out of nowhere. "Spare me, my lord. Spare me." This lowly one didn't hide on purpose. The other over-gods' senses weren't as broad as Athena's. They couldn't help but feel puzzled when they saw Athena grab this guy. Athena snorted coldly. "Sneaking around. Do you think I don't know where you are?" Black Robe cried out carefully. "This lowly one didn't mean to offend you. I just didn't dare to disturb you, my lords, so I watched from afar and didn't dare to approach." Aphrodite asked curiously, "Athena, what is this thing? It doesn't seem human." Athena let go of Black Robe and said indifferently, "You can show your true form now. There's no need to hide anymore." Black Robe didn't dare to tarry. A ball of black flame that looked like ghost fire ignited, completely incinerating the Black Robe and mask. Very quickly, what appeared in front of the gods was actually a strange black shadow. The shadow was shrouded in black mist, and its face could not be seen clearly. The outline was that of a human, but the head was an illusory skeleton. This terrifying and sinister appearance had indeed stunned all the gods for a moment. The female master gods even frowned in disgust. "It's the messenger that Zeus contacted me for the past few years. It claims to be a type of ancient demon called the Shadow Fiend. Although its strength is equivalent to the weak water stage of a cultivator, it's extremely good at disguising and hiding," Athena said. "It's a primordial fiendish demon? How is this possible? It can run out of the formation?" Hera questioned in disbelief. The Shadow Fiend let out a few weird laughs. "Respected sir, actually this lowly one can't enter or leave the array, but this lowly one is a little special compared to the other demons." After the Shadow Fiend's proud introduction, the other gods realized that the reason why the Shadow Fiend could stay outside the formation was that it had two bodies. When the Shadow Fiend was born, there would be a main body and a shadow. Both the main body and the shadow were controlled by the Shadow Fiend, and their strength was the same. Moreover, as long as the main body did not die, the shadow would have the chance to slowly be reborn. When the ancient immortals drew all the demons into the array, this Shadow Fiend knew that it was no match for them. So it split its shadow, which was extremely good at hiding, and pretended to die in battle, secretly looking for an opportunity to slowly resurrect, while its main body was sealed in the array. It was inevitable that the ancient immortals would make some mistakes. It was impossible for them to cover everything, and if they missed one or two small fish and shrimp, it was impossible for them to search the entire world. Therefore, it was very careful, and had allowed its shadow to live outside after a long period of time until now. With its clones inside and outside the array, the Shadow Fiend became the communication channel between Athena and Zeus. Occasionally, it would help Athena deal with some matters that she did not need to show up herself. "You've really hidden yourself well. So you've always been in contact with Zeus?" Hera sneered, obviously a little jealous. Athena glanced at her. "It's just that we've only been in contact for the past 2 years. Because there's a barrier with its main body, and because it was afraid of encountering a cultivator that could kill it, its shadow woke up from a state of suspended animation, and it took hundreds of thousands of years. Before that, I'm also not sure about Zeus's situation in the array. In that case, Zeus has already subdued all the primordial demons in the array. Doesn't that mean that our race has suddenly gained a large number of slaves?" Hermes laughed evilly. As far as I know, most of the primordial demons are just evil ghosts and shadows formed from evil chi. They don't have a physical body, and their cultivation progress is extremely slow. They don't have much strength at all. I'm afraid that this Shadow Fiend is already a very rare expert among the demons, and they're all a bunch of gloomy and ugly fellows. Moreover, They're all a bunch of gloomy and ugly fellows. If you want them as slaves, you can use them yourself, Hera said disdainfully. The shadow fiend listened by the side, and he cowered. Unfortunately, he really couldn't show any human expression, or he would definitely be blushing at this moment. Indeed, he was already considered an expert among the demons. Some especially powerful primordial demons had already been killed by the immortals hundreds of thousands of years ago. Now, although there were many primordial demons sealed in the array, there were indeed too few that could be put on the table. However, no matter how unbearable they were, even if they had to be humiliated by the god race just to get out, it was still better than being trapped in the array. With Zeus's strength, it's only natural that he subdued all the demons in the array and became their king. But what I'm worried about is how his body has been maintained for the past 20,000 years. After all, reincarnation can't get out of the array. Apollo looked slightly worried. A strange light flashed in Athena's eyes. He has his ways. When he comes out, you'll know. At the same time, on the Mediterranean Sea, the cold wind howled. Gray clouds hovered in the sky, lingering on. Luo Chinchio and the remaining dozen or so experts returned to the island, and the news they brought back was that Lin Ruashi was Athena. This undoubtedly gave everyone a shock, as if they were struck by lightning. The women finally understood why Lin Ruashi would leave Lon Lon on the island at such a critical moment and disappear. And the backbone, Yang Chung, never returned after that battle. No one could find where Yang Chung had gone, which made the women even more worried. Lon Lon lost her parents at the same time and cried for several days. In the end, there was no other way. Tang Wan, Chiang Wei, and a few other more assertive women went to Huaxia Hainan and forcibly invited Yang Gongming, Guoxiu Hua, and a series of other Yang family members to the island. On one hand, the island was better off. On the other hand, Yang Chung was not around at this time, so the Yang family members could take care of them on the island. When Guoxiu Hua learned that Lin Ruashi was Athena, she was furious. She felt that her son had been cruelly deceived. She was deeply worried and scolded Lin Ruashi for being an ingrate, a vixen, and saying that she didn't have good intentions. The women felt very upset when they heard this, but they also fell silent. Who could guarantee that Lin Ruashi's actions were not her own thoughts? No one knew the inside story. More than that, they felt sad for Yang Chung and were secretly angry with Lin Ruashi. To Guoxiu Hua, her daughter-in-law was secondary. She only cared that her only son was missing, and he was so pitifully hurt. However, Guoxiu Hua was not in the mood to care more. She only hoped that there would be news of Yang Chung as soon as possible. Every day, she urged the people on the island to search all over the world. But no matter the cultivators, Sauron, Ron, and other subordinates of Yang Chung, if Yang Chung wanted to hide, how could they find him? But Yang Cheng's mother had ordered them, so they could only bite the bullet and keep searching. Yang Gongming didn't pay much attention to these. It seemed that it didn't matter what happened to Yang Chung. He just thought of ways to make Lon Lon happy all day long. The chubby little girl sought warmth from her great-grandfather. She looked depressed and even lost interest in her favorite meal. Time passed so hard for everyone. Just 2 days later, there was a sudden change. In the sky, a large number of dark gray shadows suddenly flew across the sky, like countless dark meteors across the sky, flying in countless directions. When Luo Chinchio, Lu Xuan, and other cultivators saw this scene, they all showed a solemn look and realized that the situation had become worse. The demons were wreaking havoc on the world, and the array was finally broken.